On 9 o'clock. Thank you, Councillor Connor. Just in the nick of time. Today is the 26th of June 2025, and it is good to see everybody here this morning, along with our member of the public forever being here patiently. Thank you very much. Elected members, we will start off with a prayer and karakia. If you'd like to bow your heads, you're more than welcome to. Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for today. Thank you, Lord, for the being able to wake up and be in a peaceful country like New Zealand, be surrounded by native bush, native beaches, flora and fauna. And Lord, thank you very much for allowing us to be able to discuss the business of today with the members of your public in our minds. In your most precious and loving name, amen. Councillors, as always, if there declares any interest, please make it known at the time. We have one apology today, which is Councillor Golightly. I'll move it. Councillor Jovich will second that. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. There is a no Teams request this morning, and also just to highlight that our meeting is being live streamed. So again, while our member of the public knows our rules, I will still state it quite clearly. If you are in favour of something, please use the sign language, that's correct. And if you're in favour, not in favour, the thumbs down, that is correct. Thank you very much for the understanding of that and for the patience of me reading that out. Councillors, I remind you again to speak clearly into the microphones. They are there for your use to make sure your voices are clearly heard by the members of the public and by the live streaming. So when we have loud noises or when people are whispering or talking, please be conscious that that is being picked up. Councillors, we'll move on to 4.1, which is the public forum. There was no public forum. There was going to be a public forum, however, there is no public forum today. What you've got in there is you've got the minutes of the previous has been recorded. We'll now move on to item 5.1, which is the confirmation of the minutes held on the 22nd of May 2025. Do I move for those? Councillor Peters, Councillor Reid. Any discussion, any comments? All in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 5.2, which is on page 23, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the June the 5th, 2025. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Reid, you'll second that again. Is there any discussions, any comments? All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 5.3, which is on page 33, which is referring to the confirmation of the minutes of June, the 10th of June 2025. Councillor Reid, you're moving that. Councillor Harding, you're seconding that. Any discussions, comments? All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 5.4, which is on page 43, which is the confirmation of the minutes held on the 18th of June. And I believe we have a typo at the top of it, which says June the 10th.
So system limitation, it goes 10th, and that's the first half of the meeting, and then when it was re-adjourned.
Right. And this is because the meeting was re-adjourned and it covers off as well, so it just repeats the first couple of pages. Thank you for reminding me, Danielle. I appreciate that. It's really great to have the team here. They do remind you of those little things. So it is just really confirmation of the minutes of that meeting. Councillor Peters, Councillor Rooker, any discussions, comments? All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to item 6.1, which is on page 67. This is a fluoridation update. Councillor Reid, you are wanting to move this.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. I would like to do that. And just if I might, before I do that, a special thanks to the staff for being able to keep track of those last meetings. I don't know how they did it, because it took me ages to read that and get it all cemented in. Thank you.
Points taken.
Right. Fluoridation update, June 2025. That the Council, 1, notes the report. 2, notes that the Whangarei District Council has been directed to add fluoride to the Matapouri water treatment plant by 30th of June 2026. 3, notes that the Ministry of Health have notified Whangarei District Council that funding is not available to support the Matapouri fluoridation works. 4, requests that the Chief Executive write to the Director General of Health to request an extension of the Matapouri water treatment plant fluoride directive until 30th of November 2028.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Connop seconding that. Councillor Reid, would you like to speak to it?
Just briefly, Your Worship, thank you. I'll save my voice a bit. It's been an ongoing process, and until we get our plant at Matapouri upgraded, we can't hook in with the fluoridation. The DIA, I understand, have been somewhat lenient towards this and have suggested that we may be well received if we ask for a 3-year stay of execution, so to speak. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but hey, the Whangarei people that are hooked up to the system are going to have fluoride-free water for 3 years. That's my understanding. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, a couple of questions for Mr. Venmore, if I could. In particular, in relation to the funding for this project, that the Ministry of Health have indicated that the cost of the plant upgrade, there is no funding for that. Is he aware of any other projects in the country that have been turned down for funding for the plant upgrades?
Through the chair, yeah, I'm not aware of the positions of other councils, so I don't know if any have actually been turned down.
No, okay, and just as a follow-up question, in relation to, lost my way for a minute there. No, that'll do for now. I'll speak to it if I could. Again, this topic of fluoride raised ugly head. I raised on page 69. We have put in there how much has been spent on this project to date, right down to the last cent, which is good. And I asked councillors to take that into account when I comment on another project later on, where there is no funding mentioned. So it's good to see, and I think this is the sort of thing that we need to see, and I thank the staff for that. There is an issue with the Ministry of Health refusing or saying there is no funding for the cost for the plant that will install the fluoride into our system. I have a real issue with that. I think it's vindictiveness, and it's not acceptable, and I think it should be taken up at a political level. The Ministry of Health is now kicking off the next tranche of councils to install fluoride in their systems, and I would expect them to say no to the costs of the plant for those areas, but I bet they don't. So that's really disappointing. Some may call me naive for leading this charge against fluoridation, and now we're getting the backlash from it. But there is no place for a government organisation to be vindictive, and I take real issue with that, and I hope we follow it up politically. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Well, words well said there, Councillor. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I think it's a time to look to the future here and work with these people to get an outcome. And while I take on board what Councillor Benny has said, I think they have given us quite a clear indication that there is a pathway forward if we wish to pursue it. And we don't need to dwell on what's happened in the past. More importantly, we're looking for outcomes going forward. We have 4 points on the agenda. Could I suggest an amendment that point number 5, please, that we direct staff to work with the Ministry of Health around the upgrade of the plant and the implementation of fluoride to find a system that will suit them and also work with the Parity working group, water working group.
1 second. So you're actually asking for an amendment?
Yeah, I'm asking for an extension to the recommendations, point number 5, which directs staff to work with the Ministry of Health to come up with a system which will secure funding from them, but by working with the water upgrade.
Okay, just before you go any further, I just want to make sure the team can actually write that down clearly and make sure they've got your words specifically up. It would, and I do remind councillors again, it really would help if you have an amendment that you'd like to put through, that you'd like to put it through to the staff beforehand, so they can actually make sure they get your wording the way you need it to be. It does help them out a lot, especially with the delays. So we'll just wait for this to come up.
Direct staff, point number 5.
To work with the Ministry of Health.
To create a system with regard to the Priority water upgrade, plant upgrade.
To create a system.
Director of Health. With regard to the Priority water plant upgrade that incorporates the fluoride requirements and thus attract funding. MOH funding, make it MOH funding.
And once we've got the amendment that Councillor Cooper has asked for, I'm going to get the team to just double check to make sure that there's nothing wrong with it, to make sure it's clear.
Thank you.
So you'll be putting that up online, will you? Yep. Andrew, did you hear the amendment? Is there any issues from your side of things? I need to make sure it's very clear.
No, it's fine.
Okay, cool. And Councillor Peters, you're seconding that? Okay. Is that the wording that you're happy with, Councillor Cooper?
Thank you very much, yes.
Yep, okay. Okay, yep. Would you like to speak to it?
I think it's self-explanatory. There's a significant amount of money that will be required from our ratepayers if we don't work with the Ministry of Health. They've opened the door for us to do it. This gives a clear indication to the Ministry of Health that as a council we want to work with them to get the results for everybody. So that's as simple as that. Thank you.
Okay. Right, Councillor Hulse.
Yes, I just want to support the amendment. I think it's the quick thing to do at this stage, but it's also point out we haven't adopted our annual plan at all, and to have this come in meeting prior to the annual plan to dispose of $1.5 million extra costing is a bit unfair to the council, so I'd suggest.
Yeah, points taken. Any other discussion on the amendment? No other discussions on the amendment. We will now put the amendment. All those in favour?
Aye.
Sorry, Councillor Cooper, you call, Councillor Conop, Councillor Reid, you're calling for a division. Okay. All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Conop, Councillor Benny, and His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen.
It's been carried. It becomes the substantial motion. Any other discussions on the motion? We'll move back to Councillor Reid. Would you like to write a reply?
Yes, I would, Your Worship. Thank you very much. I think perhaps the author of that may have left his recollection on leave somewhere recently. We have been and have had staff working with the Ministry of Health with regard to this, and they have made it clear that the funding is now not there. It would not cost us 1.5 million because I do believe that we could absorb the bulk of that into 55 odd million that is set aside for this complete project. So I'll just leave it at that, and I would like you, myself as well, to see these on-the-fly amendments come to an end. It's spur-of-the-moment stuff, and if the councillor did not even have the wording correct to start with, so this is on the fly. It is not a predetermined amendment. Thank you.
Appreciate that, councillor. Right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 6.2, which is on page 71. I have Councillor Reid asking to move that. Councillor Peters, were you wanting to second that?
I actually want to naughtily do another amendment.
Councillor Reid is going to move this motion then. Councillor Reid, could you speak to it, please? Could you read the motion just to make sure we all understand this?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I will. Recommendations. That the Council, 1, notes the fluoride-free tap investigation report attached. 2, approves the installation of 2 taps with non-fluoridated council water supplies, 1 at Matapouri and 1 at Whangarei for use by the public. 3, notes that the final installation of the taps will be subject to notification to and subsequent approval of the Director General of Health and engagement with impacted community groups.
And I'll second that. Yep, okay. Sorry, I missed that. Sorry, Councillor Olsen, you wanted to second that. No, so I'm quite happy to let you second that. That's fine. Councillor Olsen, second that. Councillor Cooper, you'll speak to, Councillor Reid, would you like to speak to that? Second time I've done that, Councillor Reid. My apologies.
That's fine, Your Worship. I'm the good-looking one. I would like to speak to this. In our recent submissions for the annual plan, we had a number of requests for installation, supply, use of a fluoride-free tap. We've identified, rather, my correction there, our staff have identified 2 areas that this could be made available until 2028, which is 3 years down the track. So they are still investigating suitable sites. Whangarei is probably the one that needs more investigation. We have already got a suitable site that we could plug into for the cost of a tap, basically, a valve and a tap, which is at Matapouri, on the edge of the highway, and it is already a site for tanker fills. I think this is a good community thing to be doing, and it should, if people are prepared to travel, give them the option of looking after their teeth in a manner that they feel happy. Thank you.
Councillor Peters, you have a amendment.
I have, sir.
Yep.
I apologise, but I have.
Okay, what's your amendment?
I want a number 4, which, again, I'll talk to it afterwards, but a number 4 which says that staff should investigate a long-term central solution for providing fluoride-free water and funding for that, external funding for that tap.
Once again, I'm going to go, just before we second that, I'm going to just double check with the team to make sure that there's no conflicts the way that's worded and whether that's worded the way you are intending it. Is that, Councillor Peters, can you just check to make sure that's worded the way you are intending it?
Seek external funding.
Yeah. Yep, that'll do.
Okay. Andrew, can you just...
Yeah, Through the chair, I mean, obviously the fluoride tap investigation report covers off a reasonable amount of that. We didn't investigate external funding as part of that option, so there's certainly something we could do. But that's fine. I understand what that means.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. Thank you very much. So, do you have a seconder?
Seconder? Nobody wants a second.
Councillor Rooker's seconding that.
Thank you, Councillor Rooker.
Councillor Peters, you'd like to speak to it.
Yes, please. The reason that I'm asking to add this item is that the tap provided is out of one area, well out of town, and there are a lot of areas, for example, down the heads where people are, and different places in town where people are unhappy with fluoride and using fluoride, and not all of them can afford to get out to that tap. This is, it's discriminatory against them. So I feel that it is possible that there could be an external funding source to support this development, especially seeing there has been so much, there's so much dissent about this process. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Peters, before we go any further, I just, it has been highlighted to me that it probably needs that word added.
Yep, that'll do.
Are you, as the mover, comfortable with that word to be added?
Yeah.
Councillor Rooker, you're comfortable with that word? Okay. Right, so we'll go to Councillor Reid.
Question, Your Worship, if we don't get external funding, who's going to pay? Because we've already had an amendment in a previous item that slammed us for not having the money available.
And I think, Councillor, the way that, and I'm just going with the intention of the way that's worded there, that is saying about staff investigate. It's not necessarily put in place, it's investigate. So from what I'm reading there, it's going to have to come back to council anyway. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment, not a question, that the people I talk to, if there's any subject comes up around this fluoride-free tap, is that they're more than happy to travel to get fluoride-free water.
Okay. Councillor Hulse.
Yes, so a couple of comments. I don't support the amendment simply because we've had the fluoride debate. Everyone is aware of the consequences when we actually had the vote. And this is just an add-on, try to relitigate something that's already been voted on. So I don't support that. The other one is a comment made about the last motion where we added an amendment. The amendment was added and why I support it, because we're on, Councillor Cooper and I are on the working part of local orders done well, and we need to have good relationship and we want to negotiate in good faith across the table with the DIA officials who are in the room with us. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Jovich.
Just in terms of the motion or the amendment, I do note that it has to come back to council approval and external funding. The question I have though is, it says here, investigate a long-term centrally located solution. Is centrally located Whangarei Heads? Is centrally located Ruakaka? Centrally located Hakarangi? Centrally located Whangarei District, Whangarei City. So as it stands, this amendment, I question the amendment because centrally located solution, I don't think is right. It should be, you know, if anything, the amendment I would have thought should be saying investigate the provision of other non-fluoridated water taps in the district, and where funding was then applicable or possible from Ministry of Health. So I just don't see, well, you know, what is, you know, on that amendment, what is centrally located solution? There's no, it's very ambiguous.
Fair comment there, Councillor, and I'm going to go by with the fact the way the intention of the motion amendment was put forward. Centrally located can mean several things, and you have highlighted that quite clearly. It can mean several things. If you were to talk about the central location of Whangarei, of the district, you would more than likely say Whangarei CBD.
That's your interpretation.
Yeah, that is true, Councillor. However, I think that's something that the team can come back to and suggest solutions for that. Unless there is a, I'm going to go back to the amendment person here quite clearly. We don't really need ambiguity, and that's why I'm a bit concerned again. Thank you, Councillor. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like amendments on the fly, and I like them worded correctly. Are you, because of Councillor Jovich's comments, are you prepared to put CBD in there?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Councillor Roka, are you happy with that? Yeah.
Your worship, the CBD is a small little footprint in town, so you're going to have all these people come in and do a tap in Rathbone Street?
Well, the councillor, that's exactly.
I mean, this is just ludicrous, sir, your worship.
Councillor, again, I hear what you're saying, and this is again the reasons why I don't like on-the-fly amendments and why I would need the team to go through them correctly beforehand. And it's already been highlighted that centrally was not correct. It needed to say centrally located. From what you've said, and again from what Councillor Peters has indicated, CBD need to be put in there. Again, I'm going to say it's going back to the team to investigate, and it's for them to go find solutions. While I really do appreciate you questioning it, and I really do, and you're actually highly 100% correct, I need to keep with the intention of what the amendment is.
Based on that, I will not approve. I will not vote for it because, though I'd like to, because our esteemed staff have got plenty to do and the lack of direction is concerning. So if we can't get things right for a simple amendment, as been indicated, and give them clear direction, it's concerning.
No, fair comment. Councillor Reid.
Another question, Your Worship. It involves the cost of staff time, which we know we're constantly told they're short of. So, you know, I'm just wondering how much the staff time is going to cost to run around and attempt this, and then the final cost.
Yep, that is a fair question, and I will pose that to Andrew, depending on which Andrew wants to answer.
Through the chair, there is quite a detailed element about a centrally located tap in the report, and I would suggest that that is probably sufficient with a few tweaks to cover the first part of the amendment. The second part, the external funding, might be a bit more challenging, but I'm not quite sure where we'd go with that at this point.
Okay. Councillor Peters, because you've actually moved the amendment...
I just would like to have a central business district instead of CBD.
The full wording, okay. Appreciate that. I understand. I know acronyms, and you're quite career. You're accurate. That word. You understand what I'm saying there. Okay, Councillor Connor.
I completely understand the intent of what Carol was asking. When you say centrally located, in regards to Whangarei, it generally means the central city. It's the fact that we have an arterial route that comes from every other area that comes through the centre of Whangarei, hence our traffic problems, hence all the other things that we have to deal with. It's pretty obvious that this is what it is. And for the fact that she's asked for a centrally located solution, provides staff enough leeway to find the best solution that they can find, if they can find one, as well as not having a time limit on it, needing to pressure them into dealing with it. Obviously, it's something that we've got currently on the cards to be able to provide, and then hopefully, at some point in time, if it should go that way, it's able to be supported later on. But it's pretty obvious, to be completely honest.
Okay. Okay, is there any more comments? As there are no more comments, we will now vote on the amendment. Councillor Holmes is saying, I'm sorry, councillors, Councillor Holmes is saying that he'd like a division on that. All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Rooker, Peters, Harding, Connop, Benny,
Yep. Those against?
Councillor Jovich, Reid, Olsen, Mackenzie, Holmes, Hulse, Cooper, and His Worship the Mayor. Lost.
Lost. Okay. Back to the original motion. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, just briefly. Firstly, we asked staff to come back with some options for that. I really appreciate how quickly it's been done and the quality of the report. While it's probably not the best solution, it is probably the best solution for this council. And the challenge now is if the people really want to use the fluoride taps, then we will have a record of how much that is being used and be able to take any further action in relation to something like Councillor Peters' amendment at that time. So I think this is a really good opportunity for the people who are anti-fluoride to have an option that they can use, and we'll see how we go moving forward. But thank you to staff for the promptness of this report and the extent of it.
Well worded, Councillor Benny, and you're absolutely right. It is a testament to our staff for the work they've done. They've actually managed to achieve quite a bit within that document, and it's quite an extensive report to that. So well done. You are 100% correct on that. Councillor Reid, would you like to write a reply?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Councillor Benny earlier stated that he may have been naive, but he absolutely wasn't, and he was right on the nail with his comments. Thank you.
Right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 6.3, which is on page 105, which is the TAB venue policy. Councillor Benny, you'd like to move that?
Yep, I'm happy to.
Excellent. Could you read that, please?
That's it. Recommendations that Council 1 continues the TAB venue policy without amendment and incorporating updates reflecting legislative and district plan zone naming changes as shown in attachment 1. 2. Delegates to the Chief Executive the power to determine and grant consents for TAB venues under Section 95 of the Racing Industry Act 2020. 3. Determines that the review of the TAB venue policy under Section 97 of the Racing Industry Act 2020 is complete. And 4. Authorises the Chief Executive to make any minor edits or amendments to the TAB venue policy to correct any spelling or typographical errors or to amend formatting.
Okay, and I will... Councillor Reid would like to second that, okay?
Absolutely.
Councillor Benny, you'd like to speak to it?
Yeah, just briefly. So I think Will's covered this in a previous workshop, that there is no need to review this policy. There's a whole heap of policies that have to be reviewed. This is one. We do not currently have a standalone TAB in the district, and probably unlikely to have one in the near future. So I just think this is a pragmatic answer to a required review, and good work from staff, and thank you for the report on it.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Benny. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I would like to follow hot in the footsteps of Councillor Benny once again. I think this is a very well thought out idea. It gives us better control of gambling facilities, particularly for the TAB, and I think we need to keep that in mind. We can control the TAB facilities in our town, in our district. Online, we can't. So I would be much, much more in favour of sticking with the status quo. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And for those in the public who want to read, the minor amendments and changes that are listed there are mostly in relation to the changing of the acts, just to make it very clear. So it's not anything majorly significantly changing within the policy. It's more about bringing it into alignment with today's laws. Councillor Benny, is there any other discussions? Councillor Benny, since you've had would you like to write a reply? Reply's been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 6.4, which is on page 123, which is the Class 4 gambling venue policy. Councillor Peters, you're going to move that one. Councillor Peters is going to move that. And seconded, Councillor Harding seconding that. She's got her hand up there quickly. So, Councillor Peters, you are not changing the wording. You're leaving the wording it is.
Fortunately, yes.
Can you read that, please? Thank you.
That council continues the Class 4 gambling venue policy without amendment and incorporating updates reflecting district plan zone naming changes as shown in attachment 1. 2. Determines that the review of the Class 4 gambling venue policy under section 102 of the Gambling Act 2003 is complete. 3. Authorises the Chief Executive to make any minor edits or amendments to the Class 4 gambling venue policy to correct any spelling or typographical errors or to amend formatting.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. I'd like to speak to that.
Yes, so this policy and the previous one were policies that I encouraged before I was in council. Gambling is a real difficulty for many families. It destroys families. So I think that just keeping the policy as it is actually a really good idea. And as Councillor Reid has said, our real problem is online, which we can't actually deal with, which is very sad.
Yeah.
So thank you for your work on this. It's really important to hold the line. Thank you.
And Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will have to stand back from this one because, as you will note on page 125, under the Northland Club, we have 18 gaming machines there, and I'm Vice President of that club, so I will withdraw from the
Fair comment. Thank you for identifying that. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, very briefly, just so I support the recommendation. We all know that this Class 4 gambling, which is your pokies, is a Scourgeon Society. However, they do play a vital role in funding a lot of community organisations. We underwent quite a comprehensive review in the previous term of council, and I think that review is working well, and there's no need for an amendment at this stage with the sinking lid policy. So again, well done, staff. This is give you some time. You'll have nothing to do for the next couple of weeks, but we can get you on the alcohol ban one. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benny. Is there any other comments? Look, I just want to highlight again, and you both very clearly articulated the wording there. We have a situation in New Zealand where online gaming or gambling has become quite a big thing, and unfortunately our bylaws only deal with what's actually in Whangarei and within our district. The amendments that have been done there, again, are to relate back to what changes have changed in the law to make sure it aligns with that. And I appreciate, as Councillor Benny has said, I really appreciate the time of the staff to actually go through and meticulously make sure what actually aligns and what does not align, because I know that's not an easy job at times. Some of the laws that come out from central government can be rather, tactful word, hard to understand at times, or hard to interpret. And I really do appreciate the team have actually managed to do that. And Councillor Reid, also Councillor Peters has highlighted already the fact that we have a major issue with gambling outside of these gaming places. I acknowledge what Councillor Reid has highlighted, the fact that he's standing aside, which is great to see, and we also acknowledge what Councillor Benny's also said, that there is a lot of money which actually gets distributed back into the district through these gaming machines, and I do know that many of our sporting industries would not be here today if the gaming machines were not there. So I'm quite well aware of that. Councillor Peters, would you like your right of reply? Okay, right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Abstaining? Councillor Reid, you're abstaining? Yep, just making sure. Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 6.5, which is on page 141. And I have Councillor Peters, your light was on, you moving this?
What was that, 6.5?
6.5.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. Yeah,
And
I'm happy to move it.
you'd like to read that as well?
I've got a second, yeah. That the council receives the feedback on the proposed new waste minimisation and minimisation bylaw in attachment 1. 2, approves the staff recommendations for amendment to the proposed bylaw as provided in attachment 2 and in accordance with option 1 of the report. 3, request a final draft to be presented to council for a decision.
And I believe Councillor Reid, you're
Just a
seconding.
point of order, and I think we all picked it up, but the first sentence was, she mentioned minimisation twice instead of management, so I think it's important to correct it for the
Waste
video.
management and minimisation.
Fair comment there, Councillor. Fair comment. Correct wording was management and minimisation bylaw, and that is what Councillor Peters was saying, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And Councillor Reid, you're seconding that. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Councillor Peters.
Yes, minimisation repeated twice indicates how important it is. And as we're aware, and I'm surprised that Councillor Connop didn't jump to propose this, because this is, and as people know, I'm part of Climate Action Tai Tukaro, the chair, and this minimisation of waste is a really important part of our commitment to Papatūānuku, to the world, to the earth. And I also encourage within this our workers in this area to continue to research ways to use the waste that we make and to recycle it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any comments, questions? Councillor Connor.
First, a question, please.
Yep.
Number 6.3. We've got 6.3? Yeah, there it is. No waste shall be transported through, over, upon any road in a public place unless it is sufficiently and adequately secured to prevent it from falling off or otherwise escaping. We regularly get comments back about our trucks losing material. What are we doing about this?
Point of order, Your Worship, they're not our trucks. They belong to Northern Waste.
Our contractors' trucks. The people we asked to do the job.
Yep. So we will pose that question now. Who's going to answer that one?
Through the chair, the Northern Waste contractors, when we get reports of litter reported on the road, their team is directed back to clear that litter from the road.
So what you're saying there is, as long as they are informed, they will go and clean that as fast as possible.
Correct.
Other button. That's the one.
Correct. Thanks for that.
Councillor Connor.
So, continuing thing, please. And welcome along to the first meeting for me to challenge some of these things. How will we be enforcing some of these items, so such as a full bin or people putting their household material in, if it's not reported? Because somebody walking out of a building with a piece of rubbish and putting it into a bin is not easily understood, seen, nobody will care really. How are we dealing with that, considering it's within the bylaw?
It's... I believe I understand where you're going through there, Councillor. I just need to make sure I clearly understand so the staff can respond to it. You're asking about when rubbish bins or when rubbish is actually comes out of people's bins, or no?
There's kind of two questions there. When a rubbish bin and the public have overfilled it,
yep,
and it's now overflowing, and somebody eventually gets around to reporting it, but it takes quite a while often. That's one. The second part of it is when somebody walks out of a building with their rubbish that they've had for lunch, let's say, and they put their rubbish in a waste bin. It's only a couple of pieces of rubbish. It's not a whole bag. That would be pushing it. But if there's a couple of pieces of rubbish, how are we dealing with that? Because most people wouldn't turn anything around that. What are we doing? It's in the bylaw.
Councillor, as you know, that there are rubbish bins around the district.
Yes.
Specifically for rubbish to be put into.
Yes.
Any time, and we have had situations where people have put their home rubbish next to the rubbish bin. Is that what you were specifically referring to?
I'm more looking at the CBD and the person who's requested around the issue about the fact that they only have people having lunch being brought into their business, and there's not a proper collection service there.
Okay.
It's touching on that, but it highlights the issue.
Jim.
Through the chair. So this agenda item is about receiving the feedback that we received through the submissions, but more than happy to meet with councillors to talk about how we can be more effective. And I know that Ross, who's now joined us, has got some ideas in this space. So if that's okay, councillor, we'll have a separate session to look at those ideas.
Sounds good with me. I will speak to it if we can, please. Yeah, I am passionate about this area, this space. I didn't want to move it because I still have issues with the way we do some things, and I commend the staff for the effort that they've gone to with the effort that with the modifications that we have in there, and appreciate the feedback that we have had, even though it's not a lot. It's not the most pretty thing to deal with, and not really the most enticing for people to deal with. We need to do better. Hopefully we can address this. I will get in touch with Jim about some more items around this. But it's one of those things that if we're going to be fining people for this, that, and the other as per in here, up to the cost of whatever, if you look down the road and how many people's recycle bins are full of other materials, there's caps on, there's rubbish in it, there are food still in the items. We're going to be finding a lot of people if we adhere to the bylaw, and I understand that most of the time we adhere to it under extreme examples. The only other thing I'm going to raise right now is there's an item, there's an item referring to if you have your rubbish at home, you put it into your curbside recycling, but if you put it in public, there's nothing in there that says anything about washing the things that you're putting in there. Hence the contamination, hence the fact that we don't have a public recycling service. It's all just rubbish.
Point's been made. I do hear where your frustrations and your voice, where you're coming from. Councillor Hulse.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I also hear the frustration of Councillor Conniff's group, but he's been here for 6 years now, and he could have worked with councillors to actually instigated some new procedures. And so that opportunity is still available for Councillor Conniff to work through that. I want to speak about...
Point of order, please.
Your point of order, councillor?
My point of order is we've been under strained issue with finances. The fact that he's said that I've not been able to do anything, we've had so many other things that we've had come on that I've not had the chance to be able to do anything in this space. It's operational funding.
Yep. And your point of
order,
order,
Your Worship, there was 150,000 set aside.
Councillor. Yep. We're not going to go backwards and forwards here. We're going to do this correctly. Councillor Conniff, your point of order that you've raised, you're raising about the fact that it was infactual information provided by Councillor Hulse. Councillor Hulse didn't actually say anything infactual there. He wasn't actually inferring anything to you. It was actually referring to the fact that there is procedures and policies to follow. It was not detrimental in any mind to you at all. So I apologise for your feeling of that. However, there's no point of order on that respect.
It can be viewed as such, and I did.
That was not the way.
I will leave it at that. I do not need any more.
Councillor Hulse. Actually, before that, I have to go to Councillor Reid. Your point of order you're putting in there. Okay, right, Councillor Hulse.
Okay, so I'll try and get through this without being interrupted again. So my question is, my address here is going to be about process. So in the recommendation, it states that approves the staff recommendations on amendment. It's a function of councillors to hear submissions, or has this been covered off by delegated authority? Because the process councils are responsible for bylaws and policy. And this is leading into a policy, and yet we haven't heard the submissions. So can I have some guidance on that, please?
I believe the team are quite happy to answer that one. I believe this was actually, did go to council, and the council did vote at the time to allow the staff to hear the submissions.
Excuse me, can I hear from the staff?
I'm just going to go to the staff on this one.
Thank you, Your Worship. We received no requests to be heard by any entities. Therefore, the hearings that were scheduled were cancelled, and this item is a deliberations item where the submissions, the written submissions that have been received are being presented to council. It's been incorporated into the council meeting. Normally, as councillors are aware, this is usually held as a separate meeting, but this is a deliberations meeting where staff are asking elected members to deliberate on the submission matters raised and to give direction to staff for a final bylaw. So this is the deliberations meeting. There were no requests to talk to council verbally.
Councillor Hulse?
Half an answer. But no, I can understand the answer. I'm just putting out, I don't want to get tangled up here and have to come back and redo it again. So it's just, that's fine. That's the way. So this is the first time we've seen these submissions. And when you think about the amount of tonnage of rubbish we collect around the district, these are very, very few amendments or submissions to our processes. And going back to what a former councillor has just said, you know, our service is actually really, really good at picking up rubbish and disposing of rubbish. We've got a landfill with years of life in it. We've got a recycling collection. Like some councils around the country still haven't got recycling bins. We know that. We have been leading this for 20 years. So, you know, we've got to not knock ourselves every move we do. Some of the things we do is actually quite good. And everyone in the district, including all the rural people, have got recycling bins. I think we should acknowledge that we actually took 30,000 tonnes out of the yearly amount of rubbish. So we've done it really well. And so just keep going. There's other bigger things we should be concentrating on, a bit of loose paper flying around.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hulse. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of comments, really. When you read the submissions, there's quite a few there about putting rubbish bins back on tracks and things like that. And with regard to Councillor Connop's comments, to me, I think we need to just keep educating the public and making it known that if we do put more rubbish bins on tracks and at beaches and things like that, that they have to be emptied regularly, and that is another cost incurred to our ratepayers. So I think from, you know, as far as cleaning the containers and things like that, I think it's really more about educating the public.
Yep, fair comment there, Councillor. Councillor Reid?
I wasn't going to speak, Your Worship, but I have now changed my mind. We deliberately went away from bins at the seaside and various places in an attempt to make people more aware that if you bring rubbish to the beach, take it home with you. And it has, by and large, been working, because where there were bins provided, as Councillor Connop has stated, they end up being overfilled and you have rubbish blown down the beach. There was a reduction in cost to the council by removing the bins, and there was also less rubbish on the beach, was noted. So we'll just leave the argument at that. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Look, councillor, I just really want to highlight, there's a couple of things that when I read through the submissions, and what's been said here today is a testament of what Whangarei has actually been doing up to date, and I do need to acknowledge the hard work that's actually gone in play. Bringing the recycling in, and I was on council when we brought the recycling in, the effects that had was huge. Then we brought the bins in specifically for glass. Again, it made a huge difference. What we're seeing now is we're seeing habits from people who are from other districts, where Auckland, and we talk about Auckland, I know quite well, they have huge amounts of bins which they put out there, and getting their people to recycle is so hard because they have these big plastic bins that you can put anything in, close the lid, and it's hidden. Our recycled waste, and I do highlight this again, is clean. That's a big thing for Whangarei. So that means it's able to be used and utilised rather than going into landfill. So I really do take my hat off to previous councils to get to this point. The amendments that have been put in through the document are very logical ones. They have taken on some of the comments that people have put in there. Also, they've taken on how Northland does things, and we need to really be proud of how we do things in Northland and in Whangarei and how we actually achieve things really well. So I take the point spinning on. I think we're on the right track here. We're going in the right way forward. So from that, I'm going to hand it over to Councillor Peters for your right of reply.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to endorse some of the previous speakers during this time. Councillor Holst is right. We have been trailblazing, and Your Worship. But just because we're doing well, it doesn't mean we can't do other new stuff and better stuff. Councillor Jovic, who hasn't spoken, just passed me a note saying, why don't we put a sticker on rubbish bins saying, if clean...
Point of order. I didn't pass anything. I'm not passing notes to Councillor Peters.
Okay. Councillor Peters, can you please correct your statement there?
So just a good suggestion that I have heard.
Okay.
Point of order. She hasn't retracted her comment.
I retract the comment, Councillor Jovic. Okay. I retract the comment, but I still want to make a comment.
So
I'm just seeking clarity. Why was I included in the comment for?
Councillor Jovic, she's retracted the comment, so we now move on from that. We now move back to Councillor Peters.
Sorry, is it grandstanding or what's the story? I'm just trying to figure out why I was included.
Councillor Jovic, that is something that can be taken offline. Councillor Peters has retracted the comment and changed the comment, so allow Councillor Peters now to have her right of reply.
I apologise, Councillor Jovic. But I thought it is a good idea that I heard to have a little sticker saying, if full, call someone, and a phone number. That's something, and that relates to education of the public. I also, I think last year, we had an item with councils together where I asked the question, where's the place in the world who deals with their rubbish best? And it was Belgium. So I think, and then I said, well, what is it that they do really well? Well, they educate. They spend a lot of time educating their public, which has been mentioned here. So, so the education program, and I realise everyone's busy, but that is the way forward to getting people being more responsible. The other thing is that they have a cleaning tap. They have a tap beside the recycling bin. So they, for example, they put the rubbish bin close to a toilet where there is a water source, then have a tap so that people will wash their recycling before they put it in the bin. So we're doing really well, and I want to endorse that. And but there's always more we can do. Thank you.
Right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 6.6, page 157, where this is the 2025-26 fees and charges. Councillor Olsen, I saw your light on there for two. Okay. Councillor Jovic,
I'll read it.
You'll move that?
I will move that the Whangarei District Council A adopts the fees and charges listed in Table A as follows and as per Attachment 1, Statement of Proposals, Fee and Charges 2025 to 26. These fees were consulted on and deliberated as part of the 2025-26 annual plan process as required under special consultative procedure under the Local Government Act 2002.
You don't need to read the table. It's okay, councillor.
Oh.
If you really must, you can, but you don't need to. The important part was the piece that you've just read out, which I appreciate.
I want him to read the page numbers, Your Worship.
Councillor Reid, are you seconding that?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Jovic, I'd like to speak to it. No? Councillor Reid?
Oh, no.
Any discussion? Any comments? Councillor Jovic, like your right of reply? Right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 6.7, which is on page 199, and this is the LGNZ remit proposals. As you know, LGNZ has got some remits, and they've put some remits through. You may not be aware of this, but some of those remits have already been picked up by central government. However, these are the remits which are on the table as per LGNZ as requested, and we will go through the remits as per requested and also provide the voting on them. So what I'll do is I will actually move. Actually, Councillor Peters, you had your hand up there to move. You're going to say which way you want to move on each one of those, and then we'll do a division for each one, if that's okay for you. You'd like support to each one of those, Councillor Peters. Okay. So just for the purposes of the members on the public and also those online, can you please read that and actually say what you're moving, just so make it very clear to everyone.
That the council receive the list of proposed remits from Local Government New Zealand that will be discussed and voted on at the Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting in Christchurch on the 16th of July 2025. 2. Security system payments, that the council support the remit. 3. Improving joint management, that the council support the remit. 4. Alcohol licensing fees, that the council support the remit. 5. Aligning public and school bus services, the council supports the remit. 6. Review the local government arrangements to achieve better balance, that the council support the remit. 7. Notes that Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting delegates will be His Worship the Mayor and the Chief Executive, with His Worship the Mayor being the presiding delegate. 8. Notes that if remits are amended on the day, voting will follow the intent of the council.
And I will second that for your purposes there, so you can now speak to that. Now, what we'll do is, again, because of the way the remits are written here,
Yes.
what we'll do is you'll speak on all of them, and or if you want to speak on only one or two, just to highlight them particularly, I'll allow that to there. But I'm just conscious of, so we can get the votes clearly, we will be able to we'll vote on each one individual. Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Your Worship. I specifically want to speak on number 5, aligning the public and school bus services. One of the problems in our area is transportation in the rural areas. If we aligned the public and school systems, we would immediately have rural bus services back with us. I realise that there is some trepidation from bus companies about mixing school children and the public, but I think that the overall benefit to the community to again have rural bus services that I remember as a child. We had a bus that you could go to town on and a bus you could come home on if you were working in town. And I'm not sure if there was another one because I was a little girl. But I do know there was that. And we haven't had that for many, many years. When I came home from overseas in 1992, there was no bus service at all. And that was one of the first jobs that I and my husband, Tim Howard, worked on, getting some public buses. It's so basic to our area going forward. But the buses and the rurals, for rural people up the Whangarei Valley and other places. You know, I'm on the Transport Committee, and nobody's talking about them at all. There's no care for it. There's no appetite for it, and it's really important. This is one way we could work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Councillor Connor.
Thank you. Yeah, this is something to really kind of highlight what LGNZ actually does to support so many councils around Aotearoa, New Zealand. The fact that we are trying to get things to central government so that they hear what we as a collective need done or want to see done. It provides every council, and if you look at all the councils, there's Northern Regional Council, there's Far North District Council in most of these items, and it's really cool to see that from up here we're leading the way as we quite frequently will hear. Not us specifically, but we go along the same lines of it. Just the other day I had somebody talking to me about the issues with the bus service again, so support that type of thing there as well. And then you go down to the last remit, which is trying to actually, the review of local government arrangements to achieve better balance. We get pushed things from central government all the time that we get stuck with. That there's also things that they could probably deal with a lot better and easier than us. So if there's actually a review of it to actually try to make things more suitable so that we can actually take over some of the bus areas, not us specifically, but I mean, who knows? Yeah, this is something that one of the parts that LGNZ actually does play and is value for actually working with.
Taken there. I'm going to move to Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I wanted to speak on point 6, review of local government arrangements to achieve better balance. I think for me, this is the most substantive issue of the remits proposed. We know that the funding system, primarily funded through rates for local government, is broken, and that we need better options for local government. These have been canvassed thoroughly in a series of reports. But this ongoing dialogue with central government about how to do this sector better is so critical. We currently have ministers of the Crown suggesting that regional councils are likely to be dissolved. We have to be engaged in these discussions at a local level. It's absolutely critical. If NRC is dissolved, what does that mean for our region? Does that mean a unitary council? Where are we headed with this? We have to be involved in those conversations, and so I very much endorse particularly that one as an ongoing discussion through LGNZ with central government.
Thank you, Councillor McKenzie. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, briefly, I take a little bit of a different view than some of the other speakers. These are a waste of time. This is just a wish list that LGNZ go present to government, and the government choose to ignore it, or and most of the time they do. Things like security system payments, $4,500 plus $1,000 a year. Police do not get their own security systems, and $1,000 a year. Go to Bunnings and buy 2 security cameras for $69. Again, I believe a lot of these are just wish lists that will go nowhere, and I'm going to abstain from everyone.
Okay, point taken. Thank you, Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question, and I can't see the answer in the paper, so through you, Your Worship, what's the cost per delegate of sending to attending the conference, including travel and accommodation? Do we have a ballpark figure?
Yeah, we do. I'm going to go to staff here and get them to answer that, because I can't tell off the top of my head, and my apologies about that.
Yeah, my apologies through the chair. I don't have that amount to hand. I can come back to you with that. I mean, it's the cost of flights down to Wellington plus 1 night's accommodation. So generally flights to Wellington around $500 return. Night's accommodation $200. That's kind of amount.
It's Christchurch, sorry.
Oh, Christchurch.
Yes.
Or maybe a little bit more on the flights then. So maybe $1,200 per delegate. That is an estimate off the top of my head. I don't have the figures.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So the follow-up question, Your Worship, is why is it necessary to send 2 delegates? Given that you're the presiding delegate and will be casting our votes, I wonder why it's necessary to spend another $1,200 or $1,500 sending a second delegate who appears to have no role in the process. So that was my question. Other than that, I support the motion as on the table, but I do think that it's unnecessary to send 2 delegates to this.
Fair comment there, and that's actually a fair question. I did put it out to the elected members, as you all know. I put it all out to option that if anyone wanted to attend. I had Councillor Mackenzie respond back to me. At that time, we discussed it with Simon Weston, and we said, well, look, to keep our costs down, because in the past we have always had 4 people travelling, and to keep the cost down this term round, we dropped it down to 2, so it was effectively halving the costs for us. We don't take that lightly, and I know Simon Weston does, while he's down there, attempts to network with as many of the CEs and also central government officials as possible. So it's a bit of a tag team effect when we both go down. That's all I can say, because as I said, we have used these times to do a lot of that. Yeah. Did you want something else to add?
Your Worship, if I may, I'd just like to add, it is the cost that we talked about is the AGM is part of the conference for LGNZ, so there is much more. It's not just a 1-hour AGM meeting that the delegates are going down for. It is much more information, and as His Worship has said, a lot of other councils are in attendance, and it's sharing that information and improving what we can do up here.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, Emily, we could barely hear you over here. I'm against this whole thing. Basically, we wanted to send a signal to the LGNZ that they needed to be a little bit more upright rather than leaning in some of their policy making and follow through. So, like Councillor Benny, I'm not impressed with the whole thing, and unlike him, I will be voting against every item. Thank you.
No, appreciate your comments there. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you. Right, so I also will be voting against this. As you know, I moved the motion to withdraw from LGNZ and I lost 7-6 because Your Worship, abstained. So yeah, I can't support this at all, and I'm totally in agreement with Councillor Benny and Councillor Reid.
And just to correct you, Councillor, I didn't actually abstain. I was not actually part of the whole discussion process because it was a conflict at that stage. So I had to actually stand aside because I was on National Council. So it was a complete conflict. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. I think, again, what we need to do is look for ways to get value out of this meeting. Now, we have made a decision as council, whether people like it or not, to be part of LGNZ, and this is our opportunity now to get value out of that decision. Like all organisations, there will be remits put forward that you agree with and remits put forward that you don't agree with. I think Councillor Mackenzie made a very good point. We are in the middle of a cost of living crisis, and we are struggling to get our funding from the government. Now, we feel that as a region we want our share of funding, and we feel that we are constantly having directives put down to us from central government that are unfunded. So these unfunded mandates which we then have to enact and pass the costs on to our ratepayers. This is an opportunity to review that and talk and as a group, as our union if you like, and go and lobby central government, and the ministers will be there. They are present at these meetings. So that is an important point, and I think we should take advantage of that. The second thing I think is that as you are down there, and those of us who have been to the conference, what you get is all the councils in one room and a chance to talk to those who are getting the outcomes that you are seeking as a council, and learn from them as to how we could change their systems or modify their systems to work in Whangarei. Now, one of those areas that we need to be looking at is safety in our city. And I would encourage you and the Chief Executive to go down there and actually look at what other cities are doing when they talk about safety, and see if we can't bring it up here to Whangarei and get the best bang for our buck, because it is an issue in our city at the moment. So I think we've got to use it to our advantage. The decision's been made. No good harping on about that now. That is not that's not on the table. So I will be supporting some of these remits. Thank you.
Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Te Koromata. Seeing as it's the first time I've spoken, I just want to acknowledge you for the prayer that you shared with us this morning. Just a reminder, because there's a lot of kōrero around the pressure on LGNZ, but the remits actually come from the districts, don't they?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so they've landed here because they're of a priority or of an interest for that particular district. And so I note kind of, there's Far North District Council, there's some from NRC, the whanaungatanga aspect, they're within our region. And they're putting these remits forward because that is specifically what's impacting them in their district. We don't know. So I just really wanted to make that note in terms of supporting the cousins, the whanaungatanga within our region around what is the priority that is occurring for them right now. And so with that, I'll be supporting the recommendations that have been put forward. Kia ora.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, I just want to highlight, I know we're doing this, we're going to do this as each one goes through. I just want to point out one of the ones that has changed, and why we put the wording down the very bottom there on number 8, which was notes that if a remit are amended on the day, there is a high chance, because number 2 has already been picked up by the Remuneration Authority. Well, they've picked it up already, and so they're already looking at implementing it. So it's actually, there may be some changes here, and that's what I'm saying. That's why we added number 8 at the bottom. So and that's the reason why I wanted to hear from the elected members their different views on these aspects, because some of these remits may end up being removed because they're already being enacted or modified on the day. This is the intention of making sure that when I'm there, and as some of you councillors have known, last time we went to these meetings, I had Councillor Harding on one side of me and Councillor Jovich on the other, and I made, because there was at the odd time the remit was modified or slightly worded differently, and I said to the two councillors, okay, what are you saying, what are you saying, to get the answer so that we could vote on the correct thing. So that is the whole purpose of what we're making sure here, that we are getting the intent of our elected members for going forward.
Question on
Yep.
that?
Question?
In regards to that then, as we've not really had a exceedingly thorough discussion around each of these items, if they're supported, if the modification is in general support to that, it will stay the way
Correct.
that it is?
Correct.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. Again, we are just, as I said, I'm gleaning at this present moment to see if there's any major changes. Councillor Peters has made it quite clear and explained the reason why she's very passionate about the buses, which is, thank you for playing that and explaining that. No other discussion on this point. I'm going to go to Councillor Peters, back to the right of reply.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't require to say anything more.
Okay. So, councillors, what we're going to do is we'll do 1, 7 and 8 as the first voting. All divisions being called by Councillor Connor. All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Jovich, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop, and His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen.
And those abstaining?
Councillor Benny.
It's been carried. We'll now move on to item 2, which is security system payments. All those in favour? Is that division called for all of them? A division's called for all of them. All those in favour?
Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Harding, Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Harding, Councillor Connop, and His Worship the Mayor.
Councillor Holmes as well. Sorry, we'll have to do that again. My apologies. Nicolene didn't catch everyone. So please put your right hand up quite clearly so it identifies. This is for the secretary. Thank you, Councillor Holmes.
Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Connop, and His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Benny abstaining.
How does that work? Yep, abstaining.
Oh, His Worship the Mayor.
Numbers? As it's a tie, we will, I just need to double check to make sure, we'll just redo the vote again just to make sure we're very clearly on which way we're going. So just because there was a bit of confusion at the beginning, so I need to make it very, very clear before we do a casting vote. When it comes to security system payments, that Council, and as Councillor Peters has said, supports the remit. Those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Connop.
Those against?
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Cooper, His Worship the Mayor.
And those abstaining?
Councillor Benny.
Okay, so that's not support, right, clearly. The next one, I'll make sure I read this out very clearly so there's no ambiguity. Improving joint management, that Council support the remit, correct, Councillor Peters? All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Connop, and His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillors Jovic, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Cooper.
Those abstaining?
Councillor Benny.
Support. Carried. We'll now move on to alcohol licensing fees. That Council support the remit. Those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop, His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillors Jovic, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen,
Those abstaining?
Councillor Benny.
That's carried. Aligning public school bus services, that Council support the remit. Those raise your right hand.
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop, His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen.
Those abstaining?
Councillor Benny.
It's carried. And the last one, which is review of local government arrangements to achieve better balance, that Council support the remit. Those raise your right hand.
Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop, His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen.
And those abstaining?
Councillor Benny.
That's been carried. Thank you, councillors. Appreciate your time and energy with that. We'll now move on to item 6.8 on page 213. I have a changed motion for that, which is being handed out at the present moment. This is actually being gone through the team to make sure that it meets the requirements and to also make it very clear, because there was a section in there which was actually unclear, and that was in relation to my payments. So I have to make it very, very clear. So I'm just going to read the motion. And I'll allow the team to... And it will also include the letter from Creative Northland. Item 6.8, that Council, 1, notes that Whangarei officially signed a twin city arrangement with Raiatea, French Polynesia on 12th of December 2024 at Tiarenga Parawa Marae, officiated by Mayor Vince Kokorulo and attended by Whangarei Hapu, Kaumatua and Creative Northland. 2, notes that following the signing, the Mayor of Whangarei received a formal invitation in January 2025 to attend the reciprocal signing in Raiatea, taking place as part of the Regional Polynesian Triangle Festival from the 25th of July to the 1st of August 2025. 3. Approves the participation of the Mayor and assigned staff in the Raiatea ceremony to represent Whangarei and reaffirm the twinning relationship. 4. Notes that the Mayor is covering his costs to help reduce costs to Council, and the trip is open to any elected member to attend as long as they cover their costs too. 5. Notes that staff members assigned to the delegation are to provide cultural support and logistical assistance during the festival and official proceedings. 6. Actively work with Creative Northland on funding opportunities for this and future sister city trips to help enable and enhance cultural exchanges with Whangarei. Councillor Benny, you'll second that? Thank you very much. Councillor, so this differs from the motion that was put on there, and I had to make it very, very clear the reasons why it differs from that. There was some confusion about, first of all, I'll just highlight, there was some confusion about Taipari Munro. He is realistically the one who actually instigated this whole sister city approach. He is the one who has actually set up the arrangements, and while I do not wish to belittle any of his actions at this present moment, I did not want to commit him to something if he was unwell. And I want to make sure that he is, if he's coming, he is more than welcome to be there. I just did not want to force him to be in a situation where he had to be there. The second thing I made sure was on there, which is the reason why I'm moving the motion, is to make it very, very clear that all of my costs are being covered by me, not by Council. So what you are officially doing today is approving the staff to be there. This is to allow the cultural exchange to actually happen, language barriers to be met, and us to not offend the reciprocal nature that this was put into. The last point which was changed on there, which was in the discussion with Creative Northland, Olivia, and she has made some really good communications with the Arts, Culture and Heritage Group yesterday, and they are very, very keen to help out where they can, especially for trips like this. And one of the interesting things in the discussion, which I relay from Olivia, and you've seen her letter there, this is probably the first time the Art, Culture and Heritage have actually been involved, and they're actually really excited to be involved in a project like this. So they're very keen to work closely with Whangarei in that respect. Now I've explained that, I'm now going to go through what the purpose, and as we go through this. When this first came to me, I actually met one of the delegates from Raiatea at the airport with Taipari Munro and Joanna. And I was officially introduced to them, and I was sort of like quite taken back that he was, here visiting Whangarei and going around. His intention when he was at the airport was actually to head to Rotorua and to sign a sister city arrangement with Rotorua. And due to the welcoming nature that actually happened within Whangarei and with Taipari and with Joanne, they managed to encourage the delegate to actually go back to their country and actually say, well, actually not Rotorua, we want to go to Whangarei. For those who don't understand, Raiatea has the first marae in the world was built there. So it has a huge cultural perspective towards our Māori community. That is why there is approximately, I do say approximately because I don't know the final figure, 30 people coming along as cultural people as well, because they want to support and be involved with the process. They are all paying their own way. I was with Raewyn Tippany the other week when she was opening her new shop down at the Town Basin, and she wanted to bring along, she asked me whether it was okay for her to bring along her students, and I said, well, you know, they've all got to pay their own way. And she was like, absolutely not a problem. So I don't know, officially I don't know how many people will be turning up from Whangarei. I know the agenda talks about 30, however, they are all paying their own way, including myself. So it is about making sure that that relationship between Raiatea and New Zealand has a very close tie. In through this invitation, when I first got this invitation, I went straight to Dr. Reti, and I said, you are the Minister of Pacific Peoples. What is your view? And his view was, this is a really good idea. One of the relationships that the New Zealand government hasn't tied up at the present moment is with French Polynesia. So while he is the Minister of Pacific Peoples, Raiatea is slightly out of that. And he's very keen on us as Whangarei making that connection with Raiatea and the community there. I've also been in touch with several of the businesses around Whangarei, and one of them was a business which is actually now, because the Raiatea mayors came across to New Zealand, interacted with this business owner. This business owner is actually going back to Raiatea and promoting his business for them to actually have the services of Whangarei there and provide assistance to Raiatea. And on top of that, again, yes, paying their own way, and on top of that, I've also been contacted by the Marina. And the Marina has said, when you go, can you take some flyers so you can talk to the boaties over there so that they know that they can get their boats repaired here in New Zealand. So it's not just a fun-filled trip, it is literally a cultural exchange at the same time as providing an opportunity for businesses to interact with Raiatea. Again, this is something which is, and unfortunate, is at the, in my view, the wrong timing. However, I have no say over the timing that is there, and I know how hard Mark and the team worked to actually get fixed dates for the event, which was very, very hard. But they did that and they got the fixed dates. So the whole purpose of this, as I said before, this is all about the cultural exchange. This is also about finishing that twinning approach to make sure that we've covered our part of the arrangement. As again, the option is open to anyone who wants to come along with me. However, they will all have to pay their own way. I'm now, before I go any further, I'm actually going to go to the team and I'm going to check, is there anything that I have missed off? And is there anything that you would like to add to what I've said?
Kia ora tātou, via the chair. No, I don't think there's anything else to offer, to add, but unfortunately, number 3 or 4 is probably incorrect because the hosts are at max capacity in terms of who they're hosting. So they're not just hosting New Zealand, they're hosting Hawaii, Rarotonga, Kiribati, as well. New Zealand has actually been asked to, we were asked to finalise our, or Whangarei, we were asked to finalise our numbers, and they're capped at 30, which includes the WDC personnel.
With that in mind, Councillor Benny, I think the motion I have there is still open. However, it is very much that Aaron, sorry, Aaron.
Thank you, through the Chair. Just to add some more context into the importance of Raiatea in the place. His Worship the Mayor mentioned it was the first Raiatea being the forecourt. Prior to colonial times, the Pacific Rim, countries of the Pacific Rim used to meet there to discuss matters of importance, politics, and essentially the Polynesian Triangle Festival is in appreciation of that ancient practice where the countries from within the Pacific Rim meet and discuss matters of importance. Also, additional to the hapu of Whangarei, usually we have New Zealand or iwi of New Zealand have representatives go over to this festival. So it is a collective of leadership in the Pacific Rim that will be meeting in Raiatea during the festival, and it's probably quite an honour that we'd be receive an invitation to attend this.
And thank you, Aaron, for highlighting that. And as many of the elected members know, I have hosted many of our international delegates, ambassadors within my office and around Whangarei since the term I've been here, including Japan, Korea, China, and Raiatea, along with the EU ambassador as well. So there's been quite a few which have actually been. Thank you for highlighting that, Aaron. I will now go to Councillor Cooper.
Point of order, you were going to amend your...
Thank you, Councillor Benny. I just need to make sure. So are you asking for me to remove a section off item 4?
Sorry, Mark, through the Chair, if I could just add, if the changing in item 4 between trip and open instead of is, changes to was.
Was open. Okay, thank you. Councillor Benny, are you happy with that change? They're just going to change it on the screen there so you can see it. So it's a word which was open. Yeah, so I had it is as was open. Yep, okay. So
point of order, Your Worship.
Yep.
I don't believe that that's accurate because this is the first I've seen of this, so it wasn't really genuinely open to elected members.
No, you're right. I was going to... Well done.
Fair comment. Would you... Let's remove that part then. So it would be going to just remove the was open to elected members to attend as long as they cover their cost. Remove that section altogether.
Which would be more accurate, yep. Because okay. The invitation was actually to the Mayor.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. Councillor Benny, you're comfortable with that? Right. Okay, so that mover and second are comfortable with that. We will now open up for discussion. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a point of clarification. If I look at the agenda, point 1 is it notes that Whangarei officially signed a Twin City agreement with Raiatea, French Polynesia on the 12th of December 24 at Te Ringa Paroa Marae, officiated by Mayor Vince Cockerillo and attended by Whangarei Hapu, Kaumatua and Creative Northland. So has this officially ever come through the council to be adopted by the council?
At this present moment, no, this hasn't officially. This is one of the reasons why the whole agenda is there, so that you can clearly see it. It was a non-binding agreement, and the staff at the time now, Aaron, I'm going to rely back to you on this one. Is there anything that you'd like to add to that? Because it was put back to the staff to go through and whether it needed to come to full council at that time.
Through the Chair, I was informed of this probably 3 days prior to the meeting at Te Ringa Paroa. It was not directed, this initiative was not directed through staff, it was directed externally through members of our hapu.
Councillor, does that answer your question?
It does, but it gives rise to a follow-up point of clarification, Your Worship. So, if I'm understanding correctly, what we have is good members of our community have gone and made a relationship overseas that has developed to a point where 30 of our people are going over to represent the city, and this is the first time it's come into council. And it has not officially, this relationship has not officially been endorsed by the council. Am I at this point? So I just want to make sure I'm correct.
That would be correct at this present point, and the agreement that was signed, as you can see in the document, was non-binding. I do remember quite clearly, and Mark can probably confirm on this, at the marae there was a great discussion, and there was a lot of hesitation at the marae as well. However, because the document was non-binding, it was, at that time, was okay to sign.
Thank you. So just one final point of clarification. That was signed in December 24. We're now 6 months into the year, and we haven't had a chance to progress this any further until it's imminent that this travel is required.
Yep.
Okay, I understand the situation. Yep. Thank you.
And just to also hope Mark may clarify on this, and again, I'm sorry to have put Mark on the spot. He has been finding it very, very hard to get communication, to get exact dates, times and places. That is why it has come late to the agenda for council.
And probably to go back to the actual event that eventuated in December, while this was initiated by Taipari Munro, it ended up getting taken over by another one of the hapu members, and not only were we not getting information before the event, even when we turned up and the hapu were all there, they scrutinised it, scrutinised the whole agreement. They hadn't heard of it. They knew nothing about it until we had sort of pulled them together to receive a delegation of 50 representatives from 4 municipalities that had travelled across from Raiatea. So we were even managing that on the ground with hapu. I did ask right in the beginning, does this need to go through council? And I was informed that it wasn't. I forget where that information come from. But this matter is not a responsibility that sits with Māori outcomes. I think by the sheer virtue that the hapu were involved is how I got involved, and ultimately had to facilitate, even that level of disgruntlement, from the hapu and what they were ultimately getting signed up to. So we had to read that, from page to page, word for word, and then even get an agreement there, that the hapu were happy for their name to be even in the agreement. So it is a bit of an inconvenient situation, Councillor.
Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just firstly would like to say thank you for amending that. I have emailed His Worship and pointed out a few concerns, so I'll just air some of those concerns if I may. Firstly, as Councillor Cooper says, there's been no formal adoption of this, so in my mind we're not really bound to this proposal. You've kind of covered the return of investment. So I did have things, in particular Te Pukenga, Polytech, whether that's still going to be around in time to come, it's quite dubious. From my point of view, this is really bad timing. I can appreciate the discussion, but it is really bad timing. The cost, and I'd seek clarification, Mark, from you said our numbers were capped at 30. Apart from you and the staff that are going, are those other 30 going to fund their own trip?
Through the chair, they got their tickets quite a while ago. I had actually submitted this paper almost 2 months ago, and this is probably why it's, I hate to say that it's, it got to council a little bit late, but this proposal and a memo had actually been escalated quite a while ago. We're sort of sitting on a knife's edge at the moment with our bookings. The rest of the hapu group, they've already, they struggled to get their numbers because of the fact that they had to cover their costs. That's when they turned to council to ask if council could fill some of those numbers. We obviously couldn't fill it to the extent that they were hoping. There's probably only 3 of us in this organisation that might be able to fulfil those particular roles. I'll add Phoenix on that as well, 5. But yeah, all their tickets and all their arrangements have been organised quite a while ago.
Okay, thank you for that, Mark. So, you know, when I say it's bad timing, we've just set our rates, we've asked our ratepayers for an increase, and we're asking for money for this, to support this trip. Small though it is still a cost to our ratepayers, and I think if this once, and this is public, once the public get hold of this, we could be subject to some backlash. And also, when I read this, Taipari Munro, his standing knowledge of the people language, when you read this, it's in French. Does he speak French?
Mark?
Through the chair, the First Nations of French Polynesia, their main language is Tahitian. So he speaks Tahitian, doesn't speak French. And if I can, while I'm on here, in terms of the costs, as I have put in there, we've outlined that we do have budget lines for these particular costs, and I'd like to highlight again, this isn't actually the responsibility of Māori Outcomes. No. But we have an account for travelling accommodation expenses. We forecast 18,500. We've only spent 22% of that. In terms of professional fees, which are largely targeted for engagement, we had forecasted 225,583,000. Our actuals of only 49%. Our total budget is in the vicinity of 280,000. By the close of the financial year, we would have spent 76% of our budget, with a savings of 23.9%.
Okay, thanks. So when I, and this will be my last part, when I first had a look at the actual invite for that, there was what is it? Your Worship, there was a. I can't remember because I can't find it now. But when I looked that up, it was song and dance and chanting, and I thought, interesting. But anyway, yeah, I really do have an issue around this, mainly from the point of view of cost to our ratepayers and the backlash that we may receive.
Point taken. Councillor Yovich.
Your Worship, as you're aware, I was one of the up until this week, and I was paying my full costs and cancelled my flight. In terms of questions, the costs down below, it says that we were going to fund your 4 nights in Papiti plus a ferry ride. Under this motion, does it mean that you are paying for your costs in Papiti and your ferry ride?
That is correct.
I assume, are you taking your wife?
I am.
Okay, the agenda wasn't clear on that too. Following on from a couple of the other questions, point 1 says notes that Whangarei officially signed. Should, in relation to the discussion that is had, is that really point correct? Because again, near the ambiguity in terms of some of the other agenda items that we've discussed today, that doesn't actually state it, because Whangarei hasn't signed it, because we haven't actually mandated that. So I question that to the team in terms of point 1. Funding. Finance Chair just set our rates. Funding, the budget is like a road sign. You don't have to hit it. All right, our elected management team, you don't have to hit your budgets. If you come under, the ratepayers would welcome that. So just don't use it as a God-given right to actually go and spend the money. highlighting a couple of items there, this agenda has come very late, and we've just heard from Mark is that this was put a few months ago. It's been in the pipeline a long time. This could have come a lot earlier. It's noting it. So, you know, to come at the 11th hour is concerning. I've been privy to a lot of the information that has come through, and it is interesting that you will get Creative Northland and the Town Basin Marina come through and make some comments at the last moment when they're probably not privy to all the information. And it is very disorganised, and we're getting in bed with someone who isn't disorganised. It's a population of about 10,000, 12,000 just in Raiatea, except there's other areas, but the information that has come through has not been forthcoming, and I know and appreciate Mark and the team have worked overtime to try and get the information. So it just signals it's just bad in terms of what we're trying to do. I thought that we could get something out of it from a business perspective. That's why I expressed interest to the invite that the Mayor did extend to myself. But following on from, you know, really having done my homework in that, I just don't see where we are going to get any tangible benefit, and the comments and discussion on the agenda is just a whole lot of waffle, and I won't be approving this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Yovich. Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Te Koromātua. If I could just ask one question first. Is Matua Taipare attending or not?
If he will only attend if the Mayor's going. His role would only be to support the Mayor. He's not part of the cultural group.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, if I can just kōrero to the topic, I really feel like part of this is operations, and we should allow SLT and their staff to engage within the scope of their work programs and everything. So part of this to me feels like operations, and the governance part, I guess, for me is the Twin City relationships, the whanaungatanga, and, you know, the kind of binding agreements. So the papers that should have come to us should be about, do we agree to support the Twin City relationships? And then, yes, go forward, sign off, whatever. I feel like that, as governance, that's the kind of area that we should be attending to and providing that direction. And then the second part was around, okay, and then it got signed, and then we got this invite, and then da-da-da-da, and the Mayor's going, and staff are going. And they work that out themselves. That's operations. Get on and do what you got to do. And it happens with a whole heap of other networks and organisations that our staff members have to connect, engage. So I'm wondering why we are nosediving into what managers allow their staff to do within their budgets. We just heard from Mark. It's within their budget. And this kind of cultural exchange, referred to page 215 for the benefits. Cultural enrichment, education, youth development, economic engagement. I just acknowledge that there was a Twin City relationship back in 2014, Haikou, China. So I guess this is not new, but as some of our colleagues have already said, it could have been fronted better in terms of the elected members' knowledge around the Twin City relationships and approving or agreeing that, yes, let's continue to do this. And what does it mean for us, and what does it, you know, what's it going to cost? So I note the benefits. And I also noted that I just kind of, if Matua Taipare wasn't going to be there, then, and even if he is, we need that support of Whangarei District Council staff to help provide that appropriate cultural those appropriate cultural practices, and absolutely note the hard times, you know, and we did back to basics budgets. And thank you for the amendment to say that you'll pay your own way. And the rest of it, we should just let staff manage, you know, SLT to manage and support their staff according to the budgets that they have provided. And you can clearly see from Mark's comments, they're not hitting the sign. They haven't even got, you know, halfway through the percentage of their budget. So I think we just need to have a little think about these things. We've got a governance role and there's an operational role. We're nosediving a bit here, but acknowledge the relationships that we should be having. Kia ora.
Thank you for saying those, Councillor Harding. Councillor Benny.
Gotta love election year. So I've seconded this and I support this. If it wasn't election year, I think it'd fly through. It's rats and mice as far as the financial contribution is required. And anybody that thinks 2 staff members are going to have a holiday with Vince overseas, it leaves their head red. And I mean that in a nice way. But yeah, I fully support this. This is I'm a big fan of knocking on doors and see what opens, and I hope that there's some doors open because of this. I was going to move an amendment to send him to Iran to sort that out as well, but I'll leave that for the next one.
Sorry, Your Worship, point of order on just one thing. In terms of it being election year, when this was raised, they were going out to facilitate external funding for this entirely. So this has got, you know, when this started back at the beginning of the year, that was said that external funding would be provided. Your Worship and myself, we're going to pay for it ourselves 100%, but everyone else, including the staff, so we were told something and it hasn't transpired that way. So just point of order, just to clarify that, is it's not electioneering. I think I've been consistent in terms of where I am on budgets and numbers, and that was what we were told at the beginning. So that's why also too I have pulled out of this in terms of many factors. So, okay, you know, just
your point of order has been heard. You're talking about this election year. Councillor Benny's comments was referring to just the nature of being an election year and where everyone scrutinises things more. He was not referring specifically to you, and he was making it very clear. Okay, so it was about the term. Yep, and the general comment about the election timing. So it was not offensive to you. So overruled on that. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll keep it very brief because it's gone on longer. I feel for the poor Iranians. I don't think they've done anything to deserve getting a visit from you, so I think we should leave them alone. I support this. I think, to be fair, we're having the wrong debate, as Councillor Harding says. The debate should have been around, do we approve this twinning relationship? And then the staff should have just got on with it. And I think that's where the whole thing has gone wrong. And I feel for the staff. They're placed in an impossible position having to pull this together. As governors, we're having the wrong debate. So we should have had this debate well before now about whether this was something that as a council, we felt we supported. I think there's some very good reasons why we would. So I've got no issues with this particular initiative. And I think fair play to you for paying your own costs. I think that's very noteworthy. On a more general basis, I remain to be convinced whether twinning relationships really generate any economic benefit. I can see there are enormous cultural benefits in this one, but in terms of the economic benefits, I am a bit sceptical. But we are where we are with this. I think it's important that as a bunch of governors, we do the right thing, not the popular thing. And we must kind of not lose sight of that. So I will support this, but I would just note that I just feel that we have absolutely down in the weeds, and we've missed the key element was, did we want to do this or not months ago?
Fair comment, an absolutely fair comment. I'll acknowledge that. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, Councillor Connor.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm supportive of this. I agree with a couple of the statements that have been made already about how we've probably handled it, maybe raising awareness of it, just to be a little bit more clear. We have had some meetings that have been cancelled for lack of business. This could have been an ideal thing to say, guess what? We've got this great opportunity that we've been doing for 40 years. Let's hear a bit more about it, get people who have actually attended the event that we had here to come along and talk about it. We're getting through the fact that this is a travel thing and the kind of the detail of the twinning of the cities. So it's splitting them out, and I don't really have an issue. I could have been supported even if the council supported you going yourself, but appreciate you doing it, covering your costs yourself. From listening to other people who have spoken about this, they're really enthused about it. The fact that this does provide a much more detailed cultural exchange, it's that relationship that we all need to have in different spaces. Whilst I agree, I don't fully understand the whole, how it will exactly benefit, there are parts of it that to some of our community will be absolutely cheering for this, and while some of us are like, huh? So whilst it may not be popular with some people, there will definitely be people that it will be like, yes, this is fantastic. And probably we probably all need to learn a bit more about how these relationships develop, and it's good to also see ways forward to reduce costs, but also keep that relationship up.
Thank you. Councillor Olsen,
Am I allowed to ask one more question?
Yeah, ask a question, absolutely.
Thank you. And I'll call on your expertise and knowledge here, Your Worship. Are we, do we have any other Twin City agreements, and have we, if we do, have we received any benefit, any return on investments from that?
Yeah. So the only Twin City that I've actually physically been involved with is Haikau, which is China. I have been regularly asked to attend China, and at every time it hasn't worked out. We regularly have communications with China. They regularly want videos from me welcoming their people to our community. They show these videos at tourism events that they have in China, encouraging people to come to education here, as well as come for people to have business here. So since that has been happening in my term as mayor, we've been doing a lot of that sort of stuff. Now, previously, before that, I do know that we have had several other sister city arrangements or twin city arrangements. They haven't really eventuated.
Okay.
And gone much further, because I'm going through, when we moved from the old building to here, I went and found a whole pile of the old plaques, and there was one from Houston, Texas, such a long time ago, and Ohio, these sister cities come down to what we put into it to what we get out of it. It's not necessarily. We've got to keep the relationship going. And as I said, what we do with Haikau is more about promotion of whangarei and of tourism and of doing business here. Okay. With Raiatea, it might be slightly different. We'll see.
And just one more final question. So, should this not come back to council for formal approval, and then we're covering our butts in the future?
Yeah, so and Councillor, what's been highlighted here is absolutely correct. It probably should come to council early, and we should be dealt with right at the beginning, whether we want to have a twin city with a location. In this particular situation, we're now at this point because it's taken the team this long to get to here.
But you're not answering my question. Will this come back to council for formal?
This is the point where it's at council to make that decision. So this is that point. So the council have to make that decision today, whether they want that's to happen or not, which is actually clearly written within the motion.
Clarification, where is it clearly written that we want to be a twin city? It's saying note that some people sign an agreement.
Yep.
So it doesn't, it doesn't say anything.
Where you Participation of the Mayor and assigned staff to the Raiatea ceremony to represent Whangarei and reaffirm the twinning relationship. That is the quite clear part to it. If you read the invitation that was provided, it clearly states that is the purpose of it. If you go through the document which was signed, you can see quite clearly what is the purpose of this event. So it is clearly written there. And this is the point today to make that call. Where we go from here, what I'd like to see going from here is being upfront right at the beginning to make sure we have things quite clearly. However, at this present moment, this is the only twin city which has actually made a huge impact to come to Whangarei, to want Whangarei. So quite clear about
Your Worship, but it says to attend a reciprocal signing in Raiatea. I assume that if you're at point 1, you did that in your personal capacity. You did not sign as Whangarei District Council. So we have not approved that you actually do sign anything in terms of a twin city agreement. And that comes back to Councillor Olsen's comments.
Your point of order, Councillor, I need to point you back to the fact of the actual document and make it very clear to you. As the Mayor of Whangarei, that is my role. My role is to officiate. My role is to talk to other countries. My role is that, to bring people to Whangarei. That is my role, clearly stated in the Local Government Act. That is my role. So while I appreciate your comments saying it's not clearly in the agenda, that is the role of my the Local Government Act 2002. Councillor Olsen, you have another question?
Yeah, I do. Just one more. So just on that, what I would like to see, I know what it says here, which for me doesn't clarify my concerns. What I would like to see is a paper brought back to council to approve or not approve a twin city agreement with them. That's what I would like to see. And then we're clear. We know that we've got this agreement and it covers our butts in future should anything like this come up again.
Being noted, we have never done that in the past, so just do know that. Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I support this item. I've actually met some of those folks from China, and I do, delegates, and I do think that there is an economic development, economic benefit. They buy my avocados, all good. Beg pardon? And I'm aware that there are other benefits to other businesses in Whangarei. This is not the same thing, but we are a Pacific people. And as people noticed, we're in a world that is divided and we wonder where our friends are. And my gut is, our friends are in the Pacific. They may not be as strong as some of the others, but I think this is a good thing. It's not going to have the economic outcomes that the relationship with our Chinese twin sister city, but they are having cultural outcomes and what is it? Feeling is one. That feeling is one. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Councillor Cooper, you've got a...
Just quickly speak to it, Your Worship. I too support you going away. I think that's... I want to note a caution in these towns, but you want to be careful which ferry you ride. We don't want you heading off to the wrong island. But what in all seriousness, and we've had some good jokes, Councillor Benny's, on form today, but let's be quite clear, there's been a lot of work being done by our Maori people. Kaumatua Taipari should be acknowledged in here, and I do. I will not be voting for this, but in no way diminishes the work and my respect for the people involved. So thank you.
Just a quick question on it.
Yeah.
On the invitation, the second paragraph down, It goes, on December 12th, we celebrated the twinning of our two cultures, a symbolic act that has already borne fruit in terms of mutual sharing and enrichment. That's not detailed specifically as a twin city, but is that where it's kind of mirrors how it's being presented to us?
Yeah, language is a big thing which when things get translated. So, for example, one of the terminologies which I've picked up since this agreement alone, people call it a twin city rather than a sister city, whereas other cultures call it a sister city approach. So it is very interesting, and it's how things are translated within that approach. So I do acknowledge some of the language is not how we would translate things. However, this is how it's been translated to be literal, to make sure that there wasn't two separate documents saying two different things. Okay. Councillors, look, I think discussion's been had long enough, so I'm just going to keep the right of reply very, very short and just cover off some of the things which haven't been covered off. Look, I acknowledge this is the reason why I moved the motion the way I did, to make it very, very clear that I'm paying for myself. And the reason I'm paying for myself is so that there is no burden to the ratepayers. Admittedly, quite clearly, once we get to Raiatea, they will be looking after us. Again, I don't know how that's going to be happening. I don't know any of that sort of stuff. That is part of the whole process of what we have to deal with. I was quite taken back when I was originally given this opportunity to go to Raiatea. One, because I thought, this is a French Polynesia, and they want to have a sister city with Whangarei. Wouldn't they want a sister city with France or somewhere like that? And it was within the conversations that I had with them when they were here where I understood that they are so keen to have that connection to New Zealand. They are so keen to actually make sure that their ancestors or their descendants, whichever the way you may look at it here in New Zealand, have that connection back home, and that they feel as though this is their second home. So the invitation, the way it came across to me, I was quite taken back. I did not expect to have to go to Raiatea. However, they would like that to be as part of their relationship. We have made a really big stance in actually being part of the Pacific. Dr. Shane Reti, who is our Minister of Pacific Peoples, as well as the Minister of Whangarei, or MP of Whangarei, has really endorsed what we're actually doing, and he is actually looking forward to further relationships with other Pacific nations that Whangarei or our Pacific community would like to become sister cities with. So it is about us testing the water, this one here, to see where our next steps will be. And I would like to know our next steps, what they can achieve for Whangarei, just as much as all of you. So I'm going to keep it to short. As I said, we've talked long enough. We've gone through from the high level of creating the sister city arrangement with Raiatea. I'm very keen to pursue this, to go to the next step and to report back to our elected members and our community of what the trip is actually going to provide, knowing full well that there are many businesses within Whangarei who have already set up relationships with them. So Councillors, right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Division's been called by Councillor Mackenzie. All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Connip, Councillor Benny, His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillor Jovich, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Cooper.
And those abstaining?
Councillor Mackenzie.
That has been carried. Thank you, councillors. At this time, we are going to have a 10-minute break because you've sat long enough. Members, we are back in and we're dealing with 6.9. 6.9 is on page 231. And Councillor Reid, I believe, has asking to move this. He's got his light on first. So, Councillor Reid, you would like to read this, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I would. It's 6.9 is Māori of the Matapouri project update and budget approval. Number 2, recommendation that the Council, 1, notes the report, and 2, approves the additional capital spend of $230,000 in the 2025-26 financial year, which will be offset by external income from, for Carol Peters' benefit, Tourism Infrastructure Fund, commonly known as TIF. Thank you.
And I believe, Councillor Mackenzie, are you seconding that because you've got light on? Yep, okay. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. I asked to be able to move this because it was one of the first things that came to Council when I was in my first term. And it's been an ongoing project, and this is pretty much the last leg of that journey. It's been controversial in some ways, but not in others. It's been a great thing for the area. It was well thought out. It's had the backing of hapu. Strangely enough, it actually raised ire with 1 or 2 of the residents. But by and large, it has been well accepted. And this is the last phase of that project. And I think it possibly should have come in sooner, but it is what it is. And I'm all for this, and I think it's been great for the area and very well done by staff and contractors alike. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, also in support of this. I think it's great additional piece of infrastructure for the area. We know that Matapouri gets very, very busy over the summer with visitors, and there aren't enough public conveniences to accommodate that. And I think where it's landed is a really sensible thing, so turning the existing 2-bay toilet block into a 5-bay and increasing some of the environmental performance. And it's all paid for by the TIF funding, which is just a really excellent outcome. I was at the opening of the other one that opened next to the hall, the composting toilet, a couple of years back, and that was a really great partnership with local hapu as well, and a co-design process, and a really good outcome for the community. And I think, although it hasn't, they haven't achieved the same sort of specification of toilets, I think it, on balance, seems like a very good outcome and very supportive. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Olsen.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I too am in support of this, and I really like the words offset from. Excellent.
Councillor Benny.
Yeah, fully support it, and I just want to follow up with Mr. Sefton. We're aware that I'm trying to push the, Scott and I are trying to push the toilets at Whanganaki, which is, hopefully we can get a similar one, so I challenge him to come up with some answers for that one as well. Thank you.
Councillor Connor.
Thank you. Yeah, no, total support of this. This is one of those things that we've been dealing with for such a long time that I keep raising as well, the fact that the communities that are out there at these popular locations get impacted by tourism, by people that are in the city, that are all over our district, that come through. It's really great to see a community being supported because of the influx that it gets, especially over summer, and the different ways that it's been looked at to deal with it as well. So it's great to see so many new options coming through, and yeah, it's also a benefit that we get it offset, but we need to do more of this type of stuff.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jovic.
Just a question, just to clarify, is this in relation to the toilets at the hall?
No, Councillor.
Oh, okay, it was just a clarification from another elected member said that it was converting a two-bay toilet to, from a existing, okay, I was just confused on that. So this is the one at the
beach?
By the dunes and fixing, yep, thank you.
Yes, so thank you for highlighting that. Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Te Kura Matua. I just want to acknowledge Councillor Reid's acknowledgement of for championing the staff around the way in which they've delivered the program and that he's actually been able to see something go from fruition from the first time of his being an elected member to now. And, you know, and just acknowledge the name of restoring the Mauri of Matapouri. And I mean, that's huge within itself, that every step that you've been building towards and options and solutions is restoring the Mauri of Matapouri. So, mihi ana kia koutou. Kia ora.
Yeah, good points. Councillor Hulse.
Okay, so I'm going to point out another cost to council here. It reads well, it's been presented really well, but for every toilet we have around the district, we pick up our maintenance costs, we pick up the ongoing costs, all these, but we also have a cleaning contract that's got to go around and maintain these public toilets. So we're around about 90 public toilets now. So you work that out, there's well over $1.5 million tied up in all this sort of stuff. So everyone, we've got additional costs. And I'm over being told that it's just being paid by outside people. We're picking up at least 15% of the costs on these. And, you know, like in 2004, we had 17 public toilets that we had contracts for. Now we're up to 90. And that's probably a good answer to give to all the people who ask why your rates are going up. Just quote that one.
Thank you, Councillor Hulse. All I want to say is, look, this is a discussion which has been going on when I became mayor. The community out that area made it very, very clear to me that something had to be done with the existing toilets on the beach, the septic situation. This is actually resolving that situation, which is great, and expanding it as well. So again, keeping the community out there happy about providing a solution, which is a good thing. Councillor Hulse is correct. Every toilets that we do add, there is extra OPEX involved. There is no argument to that. And that is the concerns or comments that need to be put back to our community so they understand that quite clearly. However, I know full well that the community out there are very much looking forward to seeing these toilets done. Councillor Jovic.
Yeah, I'd just like to speak to it.
Yep.
Well, I agree in terms of the whole of life costs and that, and we absolutely, you know, it should be considered. The agenda is probably a miss in terms of where it could have been balanced out. You know, actually doing this is going to save us a lot of money down the track in terms of the area that our worship has just alluded to in terms of the current septic tank. It is something that we can actually get right, probably from a saving perspective. So I do acknowledge there is other costs that haven't been included in this, and again, as ratepayers, we need to acknowledge that. But in terms of the actual capital, you know, because we have depreciation and the cleaning costs and the like, but there is probably a bigger saving in terms of rather than 230,000 in terms of the current septic with the neighbouring properties and those toilets. So, you know, SLT, you could give yourself a little bit more headroom in terms of if you balanced out the agenda in terms of actually bringing this information out. That communication back to the public would show that we are actually considering their dollars and that. So that would be my comment as Finance Chair.
Fair comment. Councillor Reid, would you like to write a reply?
Just very briefly, Your Worship, thank you. Operationally, I'd like to thank Councillor Hulse for giving us something to go on, and I am concerned that Councillor Benny still finds a need to push. Thank you.
On that note, all those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 6.10, item on page 237, which is the Event Centre roof terms of reference. I will move this. Do I have a seconder? Okay, I'll move it says adopts the terms of reference for the Northern Event Centre Roof Replacement Project Working Group. Councillor Benny, you're seconding that? Councillors, as you can see, the team have worked quite hard to get this terms of reference right and to get it so it's actually dealing with everything that we need. There's not much more I can add to it. It's fairly straightforward. It's there is it is a part of the project and they are working through it. Councillor Benny, you've got something to say?
Yes, I would. There is a bit of a history with this one. The Northern Event Centre roof replacement was started a couple of years ago. Now, this was prior to Victoria and Jim's terms. And at that time, councillors were kept out of the design of it. The design was, the scope of the design was $17 million plus for a new roof replacement, which was promptly shut down by the then council. And another budget was set. A couple of years later, we finally get a terms of reference and we get a working group that work together. I hope council learn from this because I believe this is the way forward. Get the scope of the job right at the start and you'll get some savings and we'll get some good results out of it. So this is a really positive move. As I say, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Harding and I have all served on the Stadium Trust, with Councillor Hulse previously chairing it. There's not a person in the country that knows more about the stadium than Councillor Hulse, so I think we can get on with it now, get a good result from this, and save a hell of a lot of money for this district.
Yep. Any other discussions?
Just a quick one, I endorse what Councillor Benny just said, but having Pari Walker on there as a Hawi rep, he's been very, very good and been working with us really well, so it's working well. Thank you.
And you're absolutely right, Councillor. It is about getting the project done and getting the right scope and things. So well done to you guys and good luck, because we want to see the project started and completed. We'll go for, if a right reply has been had, all those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 6.12, page 247, the parking strategy adoption.
611?
Sorry, I missed one. Look at that. I did miss one. You're right. Absolutely. The Whangarei Recreation Reserve public notification.
Yep.
Councillor Benny, you were moving that one?
Yes, please, yeah.
Councillor Benny, would you like to read it out first?
Yep. That the Council, 1, resolves to give public notice in accordance with Section 119 of the Reserves Act 1977 of the intention to grant a lease to the Mid-Northern Districts Rugby Club under Section 54(1)(b) of the Reserves Act 1977 for the portions of the Hukaranui Reserve located on Domain Road, Hukaranui, for a term of 33 years. 2, invites written submissions or objections on the proposed lease from any interested parties in accordance with Section 120 of the Reserves Act 1977. 3, acknowledges that any person who makes a submission or objection may request the opportunity to be heard in support of their views in person, and replacing that 3 with 4, delegates authority to the Infrastructure Committee the responsibility to hear any verbal submissions or objections relating to the proposed lease.
Well done for pointing out number 4. Like to speak to it?
Yes.
Councillor Cooper seconded it.
Yes, really briefly, Mid-Northern Rugby Club, very proud, strong rugby club, and probably one of the strongest clubs in the district, have been used in this area for a long time. This just tidies up the lease for them and gives them some certainty moving forward. It's just a bureaucratic step that we have to take, and we wish Mid-Northern some luck for the future.
Councillor Olsen.
Just one question. So, yeah, in support, will this lease incur any further ongoing cost to council at all? Just a question.
Jim, would you be able to answer that?
Through the chair, it would just be minor costs associated with the public notification, but generally it's the costs are already being, the costs that are being incurred as the way the club operates will just continue.
No other discussion. We'll go to Councillor Benny for his right of reply. Right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. We'll now move on to 6.12 or 6.12 on page 247, which is now the Whangarei parking strategy adoption. And Councillor Reid, you have like to read that out.
If I could, Your Worship, thank you. Recommends that the Council, 1, adopts the Whangarei parking strategy June 2025, and 2, allows Chief Executive to make minor amendments to the Whangarei parking strategy, including spelling, grammar and graphics.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Hulse was quicker on that one. Councillor Reid, let's speak to it.
I certainly would, Your Worship. As far as I can recall, we haven't actually had a Whangarei parking strategy put through before Council. Certainly we haven't since I came into the chambers. My thanks to our roading team, note I said our roading team, namely Nick and Jeff. Jeff mainly for allowing Nick the time to do this, because I got quite pushy and I had a good support from my Deputy Councillor Hulse. We've driven this through, it's taken some wee while, but Nick has done a fantastic job with this, and pretty much we are going to re-energise our methods of parking around the town, our forms of payment, so there will be no more plastic tickets floating down the harbour, and it will certainly make things a whole lot different. And I'm probably going to have to change my ways a wee bit, so I learn how to use this newfangled phone thing and get it right. But all I can say is thanks to our guys, thanks to Councillor Hulse for his undying support in this, and thank you to the councillors in the hope that you accept and adopt this strategy. Thank you, sir.
Any discussions or comments on the policy? Councillor Connor. Councillor Mackenzie. Oh, Councillor Connor.
Just a couple of questions, please, first. Yep. I do remember it coming through quite a while ago now, as we've had stated in here. Upon looking through the document itself, at that time I did raise a few questions about different size of vehicles and parking spaces. It doesn't seem that those have been included within the document. Had that been taken in, or has that just been misplaced because it's been such a long time?
So the team actually worked to the New Zealand standards in relation to those parking lots, and I'm just going to check. Those standards have not changed over the years, have they?
Through the Chair, that is correct.
Yeah. So the strategy has been based on the size of the car parks, which have been within the standard. Yes, I think there is to be acknowledged that the car park sizes have now, the car park vehicles have now changed. However, because the same standards are still used through the whole of the country, and I also believe Australasia, the same standards are used. At this present point, that's what we've got to deal with. So the strategy has been built on those.
My question is more relation, not necessarily the size of this specific vehicle, but buses, trailers, permanent vehicle dwellers, people in that size vehicle, which in some places we already do have taken into account, but it's not taken into account in here, which we already have that specific. And yes, I have also raised about the size of a vehicle, which is nothing I'll say when I speak to this, but in relation to those ones. Because as we've got a lot of rural spaces, people come into town.
Yep.
They've got trailers.
I'll go to Nick on this one. He might be able to answer this quite.
Through the Chair, the size of the car parking is dealt with through a combination of the parking management plans, which a strategy will allow us to create, but more our engineering standards, and essentially the strategy is agnostic to that. It sets the principles around how we manage it. That's more about actually the changes on the ground. So although you can't specifically see it in the strategy, it is in alignment with the strategy.
Okay. I'll speak to it, please, if I can. We have seen this come through before. It's been a while to get to it, and Councillor Hulse has been pushing to get this finalised for a very long time as well. So it is great to see that. As we've just heard, there are standards that we have to adhere to. The standard is pretty average. When you go to some place, When you go to a city specifically, you go for the attractions, which are the above average, the above standards. If you have a space that allows for accessible, fully accessible parking and getting up onto footpaths and whatnot, it actually is a benefit. It's an attraction. For having larger vehicles, for people who happen to live in vehicles or happen to be touring around, having those parking areas closer to town so that they can access the businesses, it helps the benefit of them as well, rather than pushing them too farther out, including the people who are permanent vehicle dwellers. We have as well an issue that you get a standard size car park, Poe Island, for example, where we have these fantastic options of a very close child car park space, so you can have mothers and fathers with their children, but the car parks are exactly the same size as a regular car park. The only benefit there is the distance to the attraction, whereas when you actually need to get the child in a car seat back into the car, you have to pull the car out to be able to actually open the door to be able to get the capsule in.
Point of order, Your Worship.
Point of order, Councillor Reid.
We're talking about a parking strategy, not a management plan here.
That is correct, Councillor, and if you allow
I think that is more management plan than strategy.
If you allow the councillor to continue with his conversation, he might be able to explain where he's coming to it.
Thank you. I'm highlighting a detail that a strategy, as a strategy, yes, you can have plans, but if you don't take it into account in the first part, it then gets forgotten quite often. It's within the document itself, it states a modal shift and ways to get around. Yet we have accessibility issues of access across Port Road with Rayburn Street, Port Road roundabout area, where people try to get from Cameron Street Mall across to Okara, which is a huge barrier and a safety issue, that if they were to park in one area and walk across, it's another thing that gets dealt with. I'm looking forward to hopefully the staff developing a bit further as Nick has stated, and also with the management plans as Councillor Reid has stated. But it's just one of those things that if I don't raise it now, sometimes things get missed out. And this has come for adoption now, and I can't remember the last time I've seen it in a few years properly.
It hasn't been.
And it has been highlighted, it has been a long time since it's been back to council. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of points. On page 277, I'm really glad to see mobility parking taken in on this strategy. My one question here is, where you've got mobility, could it not be / disability, because there is a difference? And secondly, I have real issues around the size of vehicles these days, SUVs and bigger cars, and the parking spaces aren't getting bigger to accommodate these vehicles and utes and things. You know, like you've got a small car and you've got a ute parked next to you, you can't really see. So is that part of the strategy that we could look at bigger, which is going to make your life even harder, because if we're looking at bigger, then that's going to reduce the numbers, I would imagine. But is that something that could be looked at?
Yeah. Just on the first point, before you answer the second point, the first point, mobility parking is the terminology that's actually used. While I appreciate what you're referring to when you say disability, it's actually, mobility parking is the terminology which is now used, okay? On the second point, Nick.
Through the chair, so I agree with you there, that's the term used to describe the type of car park that is used for those who have a disability or mobility impairment, so it covers both. In terms of the strategy, it has around, in the principles, you've got support transport equity, and then down in the policies, oops, just lost the page, sorry. It has a couple of policies that effectively make that happen, so that's improve access for those with limited mobility. Can you remind me of the second question, sorry? Oh, the bigger cars, thank you. Thank you. In terms of that, that is covered in the national standards. Those national standards are under review right now and are through the feedback process. It was highlighted that the average vehicle has not changed, so the middle vehicle, 50 percentile, but the top end and bottom end have gone way out. In terms of the strategy, because it is about promoting transport equity, yes, we can look at it, and that's in line with the strategy through parking management plans. So that's where we'd make those changes, and they'd be tailored to the need of that specific area.
Councillor Hulse.
Okay, so thanks, Your Worship. What we're looking at here is a pretty complex strategy. So we've taken it from a real practical sense right from the start. And what we're putting in place, we hope we get your support around the table, but also the public support. So we've gone out and tried to find as many on-street car parks, probably at a cost of about $2,000. But our staff have been working really well with us. We've probably identified 55 on-street parks. And bear in mind, at the moment, in the strategy the first couple of years, there's no indication of a parking building. The parking building costs around about $45,000 per car park in a building. We feel we can actually drive some change before we go into a parking building. And with the talk about the knowledge hub and all the other side of inner city development and that, we need to make sure if we do a building, it's in the appropriate place. And so that's been put back. So the priority is make a difference for start, on-street parking, more angle parking, etc. Taking the low-cost options, and then support the park and ride the T2 lane to Carmo. That's already been voted on, and we've had enough dialogue and contesting about that. So that's underway now. It opens up next week. And if we can get a park and ride facility working with a supported bus route, that'll be a big part of the strategy going forward. So one of the ones we're really conscious of is the parking of all-day staff working in the CBD and that all day. So we've really made a conscious effort to try to get as much of that area made available to the public and to our workers around the city, because especially those young people, you know, they find it a bit tough when you park and get a ticket for parking in the wrong place. So we've actually looked at all the bases. I feel really comfortable where we are at the moment. But I just want to say to our rating guys, they've moved a long way from the original meeting, but I think we're on the right page, and I think we're going to achieve a really good start to this parking strategy. So waited a long time for it, but I think we've got the option. One of the ones why we're going electronic is mainly because of recording. We want to make sure that CBD parking pays for itself. We've been subsidising it across the board, and so the zoning's been reclassified to make sure that people start paying the way so we do not have a deficit in everything we do at council. So it's quite clear, and it's going to be a big move. It'll take a while for the public to get their head around it, but please work with us, and you might see a few projects coming forward in next term with suggest we actually start from one-way streets in the middle of town, but it'll come out of the CBD group that's appointed only a couple of weeks ago. I think that'll be the next step. Thank you.
Councillor Hulse. Councillor Cooper.
Right. Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you to the team who've done this work. I appreciate it, and to Councillor Reid and Hulse. It's great to see that it's a living document, because as Councillor Hulse said, as we develop the Knowledge Hub, amongst other things, there will be significant changes in the requirements for parking. On a personal note, I have a parking strategy of my own, and I park in the same place every day, and it helps my sense of continuity. So I was very surprised to see a car park there with the name Edward on the number plate. So maybe if Edward's listening, or Eddie, he could take that into account. I think the thing is, though, what we have in the middle of this agenda, page 255, is that Whangarei has a plan to respond to projected growth and to climate change by transitioning away from a transport system reliant on car travel towards a multimodal system that includes a balance of car travel, public transport and active modes. This shift requires making walking, cycling, public transport and micro-mobility more attractive when compared to private car travel. Now, I think we've got to be really careful with statements like that. While I endorse the fact that as we transition from a provincial city to a city that's got a multicultural and more population, we have to provide those multi-modes of transport. But we cannot forget that the climate we've got often will have 2 or 3 days of rain a week, that we are reliant on our rural suppliers, citizens coming in. They are coming in often to get supplies for their operations, and it's not possible for them to carry their coils of wire and sacks of meal on a park and ride bus. So therefore, it is always going to be necessary for us to have those on-street or car parking in the city so that people can get right to their location. So I'd highlight that. But yeah, thank you for the good work, and it is a open document, and we need to be able to keep coming back to it. So we've got a foundation, and that's great. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Worship. I'm supportive of the strategy and grateful to everyone who's been involved in getting it in front of council. Just in terms of process, I've just highlighted in the agenda here, an informal reference group was established. I think it's important, and I think I endorse the work that's been done, but I think it's important to formalise these kind of groups and do that in a way that is open and transparent. We are a public institution, and our constituents expect transparency in the work that we do. So I think if there's anything like this that's forming up, and it does happen organically because councillors end up working on things, projects, that it is formalised just to cross the T's and dot the I's. Otherwise, very supportive. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. So, thank you, councillors. Just wanted to highlight, and like Councillor Cooper, I'm quite conscious that there are people within our district who definitely still need car parks, and I'm always hesitant to have a situation where we remove car parks, and Nick knows exactly my views on that. I know full well that as a growing district, we also... Councillor... Okay. As I was saying, there is, as a growing district, we're getting a lot more people with disabilities and our elderly who are needing car parks. And I am quite conscious that to keep them mobile, to keep them be able to access the shops and access the shopping area, we need to make sure those car parks are available for them to use. And it's vitally important that a strategy takes into account those aspects. I appreciate the work that's gone involved in here. There is a lot of hours, Councillor Reid and Councillor Hulse, there's a lot of hours that have gone involved in getting this document to this point. I just don't want us to forget that our disability and our elderly people need access to the shops. And if we want them to keep shopping, we need to make sure we do not forget about them going forward. Councillor Reid, you'd like your right of reply.
Thank you, Your Worship, I would. For me, and I'm sure for my fellow Councillor Hulse, it wasn't so much our input, it was pushing the staff to their best to give us the feedback. For that, I'm hugely grateful, and thank you to the rest of the members of the Chamber for supporting our work in this. Thank you.
Right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 6.13, page 293, CCTO. Before we make a move in a second, there is a correction which is going through. And Dominic is now just going to explain what that correction from the staff is going to be, and then we'll check to make sure the mover or whoever's going to move it is going to understand it.
So in the agenda as drafted through the Chair, it talks about the changes to the Finance Committee, and it talks about within the section of the agenda that Council make the changes highlighted within the agenda. The highlights have fallen out in the final version, so the resolution doesn't effectively make sense. The only change to those terms of reference was to include the CCTO within the terms of reference. So the substantial responsibilities of the Finance Committee around commercial property remain the same. We were proposing to include a point under section 4.2, CCTOs slash CCTOs accountable to this committee, and then adding in Whangarei District Holdings Limited. So that was the change. Those were the changes that were highlighted within the agenda itself. as I say, those within the transition into the final agenda, it looks like those highlights have fallen out. My proposal would be for the mover, when they move the motion to include in point 5, adopts the changes to the Finance Committee terms of reference, to include the wording outlined in section 4.3 of this paper, which makes it clear.
4.2.
4.2, sorry. There you go, another tweak there. Just to make it clear that the highlights aren't in that it includes all of that wording, which is to include the CCTO within the terms of reference of the Finance Committee.
Okay. Councillor Harding, are you liking to move this?
Yes, thank you.
And can you read it out just to make sure that everyone understands what you're moving? Do be well aware that the document in front of you on the screen there might be slightly different to the one that's in your document.
Okay. So the kaupapa is to provide council an update on the feedback from Te Kārerea and to proceed with the establishment of a council-controlled trading organisation, CCTO, for commercial property, and the recommendations are that the council, number 1, proceeds with the establishment of a CCTO being Whangarei District Holdings Limited. Number 2, notes the Transition Advisory Board has recommended that Whangarei District Holdings Limited has a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5 directors. Number 3, adopts the proposed constitution for Whangarei District Holdings Limited, inclusive of the tab's recommendations for a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5 directors. Delegates the Chief Executive to execute all necessary documentation and establish Whangarei District Holdings Limited as a CCTO in July 2025. And the recently amended number 5 adopts the changes to the Finance Committee terms of references to include the wording outlined in section 4.2 of this paper. And if I could please, with an addition to number 6, direct staff to investigate opportunities for Whangarei District Holdings Limited to work alongside Hapu for consideration through Council's initial statement of expectations for the entity.
Councillor Mackenzie, are you seconding that? Yep. Okay. Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Te Koromata. And again, huge acknowledgement to our senior staff that have been working with us in the Transition Advisory Board to get us to a point of a holdings limited company. And obviously, just the feedback from Te Kārerea, there's this kind of anxiousness around Hapu being left out. My participation on the Transition Advisory Board is to be upfront with the chair around the Hapu involvement, engagement. From our recent draft response of the treaty audit, it does show that Council has actually lifted its engagement and connection with Hapu, and we want to make sure that relationship transitions across and is heightened with the CCTO, with the Whangarei District Holdings Limited. We've been open and speaking directly with the chair who supports this approach. So by including this in the statement of expectations, I believe we will have the commitment that Hapu are looking for. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Councillor Mackenzie.
I'd just like to speak in favour of this, Your Worship. I mean, we've covered what it means to establish this council-controlled trading organisation in various other meetings previously, but today is the day that it is officially formed, and I think that that is a real milestone that is worth celebrating. It's something that I think collectively, as a group of elected members, we've very much been on the same page. The vast majority have supported this throughout, and it's something that we've recognised as a missing piece of the puzzle, as a way that we can potentially improve our the returns that we're getting from our commercial property, and also achieve the strategic outcomes that Council have identified for our inner city. So onwards, very happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Anybody else? Councillor Connor.
Just on this one here, this question first of all, please. In other items we have within the agenda item, risks. This one doesn't appear to have risks outlined within the agenda item. Is there a reason that was not included?
I will go to Dominic on this one.
Through the previous meetings, you've considered the substantive decisions and the risks, options, advantages and disadvantages, so you've covered this extensively. So particularly in the March agenda, there was a very detailed analysis, and that fed through back to your consideration of submissions through the LTP, effectively. So this is really the final step. You've already made the substantive decisions around establishment and what it would look like, and then this is the final step to bring back the Constitution to do so.
Thank you very much. I will speak to it, please. Yep. I'm hoping this works. I'm really hoping this works. I don't want it to fail. There's concerns about that, and it has been raised, and obviously there's going to be a cost initially with the potential comeback afterwards. Personally, I'm not in favor of it. I haven't been the whole way through. I've listened to the community who haven't been in favor of it. There are parts of it that I do support, but I'm not. For me, I don't see our public money going into profits, into this commercial nature of this, and that aligns with where I've been, and I just have concerns. I'm really hoping it will have a benefit to reducing rates and costs for us, and it will go back into the right spaces within council. And that it will hold its own. But yeah, I'm going to vote against this just to be consistent with where I've come along this process.
Councillor Olsen.
Thank you. Just around Deb's addition of 6, and just a question, Deb, with you being on, or with Councillor Harding being on the TAB and the chair of TK, is that motion or that is it really necessary to have the input of, like, because I'm looking at it from you being on the board and having TK input, is that actually necessary?
Okay, so that's not something for the councillor to answer. What I will say though, councillor,
it's a question.
It's a good question to ask. However, I think you need to look past today. Okay, so what that's asking for is that item there is quite clearly saying that it needs to have, they'd like hapu involvement or hapu access. Now, next term, Councillor Harding may not be here.
Of course you will.
There's elections. We're all that. What this item is going past the elections and actually making sure that there is an enduring working relationship with our local hapu. And that's what, and that's how I've read the motion. Is that the intention? Sorry, yes. Sorry, I'd make sure that's how I read it. It is going past the election time to make sure that there is the connections happening for future.
Just a question.
Yep. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jovich.
Your Worship, just making a statement in terms of my involvement with the TAB. And it's just probably around the statement of expectations. All organisations need to deliver a statement of intent, and that was based on statement of expectations from council. This is a directive. This is just part of it. It is what we will be asking our CCTO to consider in terms of involvement with any organisation out there. It will come back to return on investments, many considerations. It is part of our treaty considerations that we have to, acknowledge this also. But apart from that, it would be all-encompassing. It is just in terms of we have asked that, hey, let's consider it and consider them as future partners. We never know where funding comes from, their involvement with developments and that, and when it suits all parties, sometimes hapu will not want to be involved with some of those discussions, and that's up to them to decide. But it just allows a mechanism for us to actually have done our part as elected members to consider, and as part of our obligations or our, we could bring in other organisations into our expectations, and that will go back and forth between us and the new CCTO. So I have no issues with putting this or approving this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. It's been great working on this Transition Advisory Board with Councillor Jovich and Harding, and Councillor Jovich summed it up very well. I think the argument, and I hear the concerns from Councillor Connop next to me here, whether or not this will be a success, this I think is an answer to those people who say, how are we going to improve our income so that the burden on ratepayers is less? So there's been a lot of work being done on this to ensure that it will be successful, and at the same time control its expenditure. And we've been very, very lucky with the calibre of the people who have come in to work alongside us from the community for nothing to get this over the line. So we're very, very lucky. Point 6, as promoted by Councillor Harding, which I support fully, gives us, the elected members, the ability through the initial statement of expectations to set some guidelines about how things will be done. So, you know, totally normal practice, and fully recommend it to my fellow members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Like most of the speakers here, I will actually, in support of this as well. We are in a situation where we need to be looking outside the box. And by putting the CCTO in place, we've actually done that. We're looking outside the box to bring income back into the district to be able to supplement our rates. We have acknowledged for too long that our rates are continually going up, and we need to find alternatives to that. That is what the CCO, in my mind, what the CCTO should have been. And I'm very, very glad that we've actually got to that point and actually instigated it now for it to start working on that. This is, in my mind, again, part of what we need doing going forward. There is a lot more things to change, there's a lot more things to work on. This is just one major part of it to get things, our district going forward, so that we are taking care of and looking after the future of our district. Councillor Hulse.
Yes, some really good comments been made. I just want to support the motion, and just in saying that, it's really, really pleasing to actually have two of our first-term councillors working on this group, because it's all forward-focused, so that's really, really cool. So two chairs working with Councillor Cooper as well. So why I want to support it is we've lost so many opportunities over recent decades in the CBD and around what we're doing with our commercial businesses. And everyone seems to be too hard. Well-intentioned groups come and present it to us, and we've had everything from malls to car park buildings to retail and car park buildings and all that, and they've all been turned down for one reason or the other. But the other thing, this will focus on the commercial income we should be obtaining from our commercial developments, but it also puts a group in and will turn the narrative around and say, yes, sounds like a really good work, and we're going to actually produce this and deliver those projects. And I think that's a step that should be really highlighted here. With our independent away from council, they look at the business world, they look at the business factors of putting projects together, but they make a decision. And I think that's the key to this whole group. So our return on investment in our commercial portfolio has been dismal. So this is a good way to jack that up. But I really admire the guys who've done this work to get this through by the date. They said they're going to report back in July, and they've got it back before July, so that's well done. Thank you.
Right, we'll now move to Councillor Harding for the right of reply.
I just acknowledge all the positive narrative shared from the elected members, and allow the next process and next steps to progress us forward. I also acknowledge Councillor Connop's position as well. Thank you.
Right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any against? Do you want it recorded? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 6.14, which is in the supplementary agenda on page 3. This is the proposed Northern Rescue Helicopter Limited agreements. No change. I will. I'll move this just on the respect that there is a slight change, just so that everyone understands it. That the council, 1, approves lease and standalone agreements with Northern Rescue Helicopter Limited as outlined within this report. 2, approve staff undertaking any final negotiations with Northern Rescue Helicopter Limited necessary to finalise the terms of the agreements. 3, authorises the, where I'll get the right wording here, the General Manager of Corporate to finalise and execute all agreements. 4, notes that the Northern Rescue Helicopter Limited is responsible for ensuring compliance with all applicable legislation and regulatory requirements, including those under the District Plan and the Resource Management Act of 1991. 5, notes that these decisions do not limit or fetter Council's discretions in relation to any future lease matters, renewals or operational arrangements. Councillors, I know that this is got to a point now. I just got to see if there's a second. Councillor Cooper, sorry, Councillor Reid was first. Sorry, my apologies. I did see that and I didn't acknowledge you, Councillor Reid. You did say you wanted to second that.
Your Worship, could we have the motion put on the screen, please?
They're just coming through with that right now. I just need to explain why the Chief Executive needed to be removed from that, and it was actually the General Manager of Corporate was put in there. Just so you understand, our Chief Executive at the present moment is away sick. Dominic, who is second in charge because he is dealing with the whole situation, is unable to actually sign this. Therefore, the only appropriate person to sign this is the General Manager of Corporate. Hence the reason why that slight change is in there. For those who don't understand, that's Alan Adcock. Okay. I also will acknowledge at this present moment there is a court proceeding going on, and that is another reason why Dominic cannot be involved in that signing of that document. This has taken a long time to get to this point here, and while there are still members of our community who are still upset with council in doing this, we also acknowledge that as an airport site, this is part of the requirements that we are obliged to do, and I'm quite comfortable with how the staff have explained it, gone through the recommendations, gone through the agenda, explaining quite carefully what the council can and cannot do and the processes that they have to have gone through. I'm at this point going to leave it open for discussion, and I believe Councillor Cooper, you were first with your light on.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I just draw the collective elective members' attention to the motion as it is there on the screen is wholly to do with the lease and lease only. As the airport authority and the joint owner of it, that is our role, as the Mayor has said, and there is nothing in this that is outside the normal activities of an airport authority. So it's a straightforward thing in my opinion, and I urge people to just let it go through as a matter of, just a matter of operations. Thank you.
Any other discussions? As there's no other discussions, I will forgo my right of reply because you've all had the chance to read the document very well. It is very well written and explains everything very clearly. All those in favour? Any opposed? It is carried. Thank you, councillors. We will now move to go into public exclusion. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Olsen was second, putting her hand up there. All those in favour? Any opposed? Thank you, councillors. We'll now move into public exclusion. And giving the team